BBC One, if you want to watch the tennis, here on 5 Live from 2 o'clock, commentary of the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix. George Russell is on pole. Let's join our team for this one. BBC Sports F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, former F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling, and your commentator Alice Powell.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. It was a much-needed pole position for George Russell, taking his 10th career pole. As we're just watching on our screens here, George Russell on the way to the grid having a massive lock-up on the soft tyre. So trying to already push to the limits. Lewis Hamilton was having a battle out of pit lane as well with Carlos Sainz. So already getting elbows out for Hamilton, and maybe that's a telltale sign of what to come, Abby. But it was a brilliant pole position for George Russell yesterday, and exactly what he needed.
Yeah, exactly what he needed. George needs momentum. Of course, his teammate Kimi Antonelli is breathing down his neck this season, and is kind of leaps ahead, let's say, actually in the championship. So exactly what he needed. He's got I think a lot of confidence going into today. It's his to lose for sure, but Hamilton next to him, very experienced, and he seems so eager and hungry to get his first win in Ferrari.
And the sun is absolutely beating down here in Barcelona. 50 degrees track temperature. It is very, very busy out on the grid, already full of people wanting to get shots of Lewis Hamilton lining up on the front row for the first time since Silverstone 2024. Andrew, that's going to be a challenge, isn't it, these warm temperatures for the drivers to manage the tyres during this race. It's a tough circuit, it's an abrasive circuit as it is, but with these high temperatures, that's just going to add to the challenge this afternoon.
Yeah, Grand Prix have tended in recent years to sort of default to a one-stop strategy. It doesn't look like that's going to happen in Barcelona today. 2 or maybe even 3 stops for everybody is the prediction. And that start between Russell on pole position, Hamilton alongside him on the front row, as you say, Alice, and Kimi Antonelli in third, is going to be one of the key moments of the race. Last year, Russell he started third, and he took the lead at the first corner. It's a long run down to the first corner. Slipstream effect is large, and of course the Ferrari is very fast starting this year because of its engine characteristics. So who's going to make it to the first corner, we don't know. Usually the winner of this race comes from the first 3 spots on the grid, but with the strategy implications this year, it might be a little bit different.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a very long run down to turn 1, and we've been rubbing our hands together with excitement in terms of that face-off we could possibly have on that run to turn 1. Ferrari always fast starting. Lewis Hamilton, though, he could potentially this afternoon get his first win in Ferrari colours, and that would just be something special. A long way to go, of course, and we've seen Kimi Antonelli already touch on the radio that he's struggling for brakes, but Hamilton is come alive this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we're waiting for, that run down to turn 1, and Hamilton, I think he's feeling not even quietly confident. I think he's showing lots of confidence in himself, and really knows he has a chance of winning today with that Ferrari off the line. Around Barcelona, it's so hard to overtake, with the new hybrid systems and how the battery management works. It's promoted more overtaking, but when you're in the lead at Barcelona, that aero wash that you face, he knows that if he can get in the lead into turn 1, he has a brilliant chance. But don't forget, last year actually George Russell started P3 and he swooped round the outside to take the lead into turn 1. So yeah, it's anyone's game, and obviously there's a dirty side of the grid as well, and there's so many different moving factors that can come into play on this race start. And then going further down the grid as well, Charles Leclerc starting P10, he's not where he wants to be. The Ferrari looks fairly fast, so we'll be seeing him carving his way through the field as well. Yeah, Charles Leclerc had a massive accident yesterday at turn 4, which brought out the red flag, halted qualifying in Q3, so he'll be starting, as you said, Abby, down in 10th place. But Kimi Antonelli, you said that George Russell took the lead from 3rd place last year. He's starting in 3rd. Okay, he's leading the championship from Lewis Hamilton by 66 points. But we've heard some frustration over the weekend, Andrew, from Kimi Antonelli. He's had traffic on the build-up in the free practice sessions and didn't look particularly happy yesterday after qualifying.
No, he's been on the back foot all weekend, and he's a competitive being, obviously, and he wasn't happy being down in third place after such a strong run of 5 wins in a row this year to take control of the championship. But of course, he can afford to be a little bit, whether he will be conservative is a different question, but he can afford to be, and I think he will be wise to be in the situation that he's in. The championship he's holding it in his hands really at the moment. If he manages the season carefully, he should be able to maintain that lead relatively simply for the rest of the year. So he doesn't need to do any heroics today, but of course he'll be tempted to, because he wants to win just as much as Russell and Hamilton want to win. Just a little bit of statistical coincidence for you. That race at Silverstone, which was the last time Hamilton started in second place on the grid, he of course went on to win that race. He's very much up for it. The fight is on, he said yesterday after qualifying. I think he's slightly fearing the Mercedes pace, but asking around the paddock today, it feels like it might be just Mercedes against Ferrari at the front of this race, so it could be a really interesting battle between those 3 cars.
It's 686 days since Lewis Hamilton has taken a Grand Prix victory, and I think that will be a hugely celebrated one. We've seen the grandstands and particularly the banks here in Barcelona. They were packed for the Formula 3 race, which took place at around about 9 a.m. this morning. It's scorching heat, 30 degrees currently is the air temperature. So finally, Abby, who's your money on then for victory this afternoon?
I mean, it's definitely Mercedes to lose, I won't deny that, but I just love the story. I think it's quite poetic if we could see Lewis Hamilton take the victory today in Barcelona.
I'm thinking probably Russell, but I think Hamilton's got a really good chance. The Ferrari's upgraded this weekend, and it's looked very effective. Leclerc's been quick all weekend until he crashed. Hamilton was a bit out of sorts until qualifying, but he did a really great job to get it on the front row. So my anticipation is whetted basically for this fight between these 3 guys at the front of the grid, Russell, Hamilton and Antonelli. I think it could be any of them.
Yeah, as the drivers are taking on as much water as possible. The cool vests, ice vests are on, as we've already said, really hot temperatures here, but the grandstands are packed, the banks are full, colours of Aston Martin, Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, you name it. Every F1 team here this weekend has huge support from this Spanish crowd. So we're around about 25 minutes from lights out, and 66 gruelling warm laps await these drivers, chappers.
Thank you very much. So full commentary at 2 o'clock, and we'll be back with the team for that. Let's go to Edge back o'clock. We'll start our build-up from sometime just after 4 o'clock, and that will follow the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix, which you can now hear in full with Alice Powell.
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon from Spain. We're around about 5 minutes away from lights out for the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix. We're about northeast of the beautiful city of Barcelona, and this is a circuit that the drivers know like the back of their hand. But history is being made this season as Barcelona hosts the race under a new name, with the Spanish Grand Prix moving to Madrid later on this year. This is round 7 of the Formula 1 World Championship, and at the front of the grid it's an all-British lockout. George Russell has stormed to his 10th pole position of his Formula 1 career, while Lewis Hamilton lines up alongside him for his first Grand Prix front row start since Silverstone 2024. So the stage is well and truly set for a fascinating battle, particularly into turn 1, and we're moments away from racing in Barcelona. It's a pleasure to have alongside myself Alice Powell, BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, and the 2024 F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling. And George Russell got the job done today, but can he convert that into, I would say, probably a crucial win this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, George needs it after being up against Kimi Antonelli this season. He's 68 points behind his teammate. He really needs to close that gap up. I mean, in qualifying we saw actually Hamilton was very fast. You know, he's obviously on the front row, and he was actually ahead in qualifying until the very last corner. So that means that we're up for a close battle today, to say the least.
And championship leader Andrew, Kimi Antonelli, who's won the last 5 Grand Prix, he's lining up in third place, creating history constantly in Formula One, at least for the moment, but he's had a bit of a tough weekend so far here in Barcelona.
He has. It was interesting actually, both Hamilton and Antonelli had tough weekends until qualifying, but Hamilton bounced back, put it on the front row, as Abby was saying. Antonelli's only managed third, which is the worst qualifying position for him all year, believe it or not. That's how strong his season's been so far. He's won the last 5 races consecutively, of course. There's a real mix of tyres at the start there, which is interesting. Hamilton starting on the soft tyre with Russell, Antonelli and Norris in first, third and fourth on the medium, and Verstappen also on the soft. We're expecting a 2 or 3 stop strategy race, and that soft choice could mean from Ferrari that they're already expecting it to be 3 stops from their point of view.
And I think crucially as well, Hamilton starting on the soft tyre, so two Mercedes on the medium, Hamilton on the soft. That could give him that extra purchase off the grid that he needs to leapfrog Russell and potentially be leading the race at the end of the first lap.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely Ferrari are going quite aggressive with that strategy. Putting Lewis on the soft, wants to get the lead into turn 1. That's very obvious with their tyre choice. And I mean, with the smaller turbos that Ferrari have, they've been really good off the line so far this year. So I think we'll see some close action going into turn 1.
Yeah, and it's beautiful clear skies here in Barcelona. Air temperature around about 30 degrees, track temperature high in 51. And of course, those temperatures could prove to play a starring role as well, as tyre management will be absolutely critical. Scorching track temperatures, and Abby, you've raced around Barcelona when there's been temperatures similar to this. That's probably going to be one of the main challenges, isn't it, for the drivers this afternoon, with just managing the tyres. But also it's quite a physical circuit, particularly that turn 3. There's 66 laps ready to face these drivers, and it's challenging on the neck around this track. Yeah,
this is the first kind of conventional circuit that we've visited so far on the F1 calendar. Lots of street circuits and flyaways as of recent, until we've started this more European leg. Yeah, it's got long loaded corners which punish the tyres a lot, and that's where we see the strategies come into play and who can manage that the best. I mean, turn 3, like you say, really punishes the left-hand side. The front left, you get quite a bit of understeer comes into play. We've heard some of the teams struggling as well with that. The rear axle as a whole is a nightmare anyway. And yeah, losing a couple of tenths per lap as the tyre gets older.
It is definitely going to be a huge challenge for these drivers. We've already seen a little bit of action going to turn 1 as Lewis Hamilton was coming out the pits to the grid this afternoon. He was getting his elbows out alongside Carlos Sainz. George Russell had a bit of a lock-up as he was running down into turn 1, just testing out the soft tyre. Of course, he is starting on the medium tyre, but the tyre warmers are off. Mechanics retreat to the side of the circuit. Final touches are complete. 22 drivers, a long hot race. It's 3 p.m. here in Barcelona and 2 p.m. in the UK. It's time for the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix. Starting from pit lane will be Fernando Alonso, who changed his power unit coming into the Grand Prix today. On the back row, it'll be Lance Stroll. Another tough weekend so far for Aston Martin, alongside Bottas in 20th. Perez and Alex Albon will be 19th and 18th. Ocon, Sainz, and then Behrman from Gasly. Gasly getting that podium back in Monaco last time out, but a tough weekend so far from him. Colapinto in 13th from Gabriel Bortoleto in 12th, and Limbad and Charles Leclerc will start in 10th after that huge impact into the wall at turn 4 yesterday in qualifying. Nico Hulkenberg will line up in 9th, looking to get his first points of the season from Liam Lawson. Oscar Piastri is in 7th, and disappointing, he topped one of the free practice sessions on Friday, so he's disappointed with his weekend so far. Isaac Hadjar in 6th from Max Verstappen in 5th. Max only one podium so far this year. Lando Norris, he's completed the fewest laps of anyone in the Grand Prix this season. Kimi Antonelli in 3rd, and then completing the front row in the grid will be an all-British front row of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. So they're coming round, Abby, as we can see Russell coming out in turn 12. And of course, if you want to keep an eye on the tennis, you can catch that on BBC One, and we have ball-by-ball commentary from the Women's T20 World Cup at Edgbaston of India and Pakistan over on Sports Extra. How would you play this if this was George Russell, Abby, quickly? Because you know you've got Lewis Hamilton on the softs alongside you. You know you're going to be vulnerable starting on the medium tyre. Would you just let Hamilton go, or is he going to be absolutely fighting it?
Well, George is very experienced. He's been in this position a few times, and I think he's smart enough to play the long game and not get ahead of himself. He knows that he's on a different strategy to the Ferraris with that tyre choice being different. So I think he's got the maturity and the experience to be smart with this one.
He certainly has. Lewis Hamilton has lined up in his grid slot. It's going to be Fernando Alonso bleeding into the pit lane. Lance Stroll comes around the final corner, does a few burnouts. He's taking his time, not wanting to rush, starting on the hard tyre. And it actually is going to be a bit of a long wait as the final cars are still coming round the corner. Last corner, the two Alpines pulling up, plenty of burnouts still going on. Important track position is so important here in Barcelona to try and get that purchase off the grid, try and gain an extra couple of spots to help your strategy in the race later on. So the drivers are poised and ready to get underway in Barcelona. Final car of Lance Stroll lines up, start procedure begins, and the revs will start to rise as we await the first red light on the gantry. Can George Russell get a good start from pole? And we're underway in Barcelona, and it's a perfect start from Lewis Hamilton. Is he going to pull up alongside from George Russell? That second phase wasn't as good, but Kimi Antonelli all over the back of Hamilton, and Lando Norris down the inside of Antonelli doesn't make it stick. It's clean and easy for George Russell at the front, but he's got some oversteer on the exit of turn 2, and Hamilton all over the back of Russell as he goes through turn 3 under all sorts of pressure as they come into turn 4, but Russell managed to hold it from Hamilton. Antonelli, Norris in 4th place, and round the outside goes Max Verstappen to challenge Oscar Piastri as he has a look down the inside of Lando Norris, not making contact. Very close between the two there, but George Russell already, Abby, stretched his legs at the front of the field. A perfect start. It actually looked initially like Hamilton got the better start, but wasn't able to get a good start in that second phase.
Exceptional from George Russell, that. We didn't actually expect that, of course, starting on the medium. He's really managed to bridge a gap now already in this early phases of the race, coming to the end of lap 1, as we see the two racing bulls were side by side throughout the whole start of the first sector. Actually, it was quite spectacular, one running wide, and yeah, I mean, George, what a start.
It was, and Hadjar's kicking up some gravel. He's actually lost some places there. He's down in amongst the Haas cars, but George Russell already 1.2 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and when we do get overtake, crucially, he has broken that, so Lewis Hamilton won't get the benefit of that extra power. Antonelli, though, 0.8 of a second behind Lewis Hamilton's. We've got side-by-side action between the two Hasses. Esteban Ocon swoops around the outside of his teammate Oliver Behrman, and that's a battle for down in 15th place. But Hadjar, I'm not sure what happened to him. He started in 6th, but he slid down to 14th place on that medium tyre, but looking easy so far for George Russell.
So, Alice, the top 5 have all stayed in position. Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli, Norris and Verstappen. The big loser was Isaac Hadjar, who's dropped down to 14th. And Charles Leclerc has moved from 10th to 7th in the Ferrari to join the back of that lead group just behind Oscar Piastri.
So Leclerc, he knows Ferrari have the pace this weekend, particularly in the race, and Hamilton proved that also actually for qualifying, but wasn't able to extract it. He had a huge kick of oversteer which sent him into the wall into turn 4. But I'll tell you what, who's going to be coming under pressure quite soon, and that's potentially going to be Antonelli. Lando Norris has stormed up to the back of him, at least during this lap, just having a look at the sectors, and it wasn't a personal best for Antonelli in that middle sector. So I think a mistake for somewhere along the line during this lap for Antonelli, as the gap continues to increase out front. It's 1.4 seconds. It's Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli is your top 3 from Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, Leclerc, Lawson, Hulkenberg and Lindblad rounds out your top 5. Colapinto, Gasly, Sainz, Hadjar, Ocon, top 15 from Behrman, Bortoleto, Albon, Perez, Bottas and the 2 Aston Martins of Stroll and Alonso at the end. And Hajar, Abby, he's looking to brave it around the outside of turn 3 on signs.
Yeah, that was brave stuff. I mean, round turn 3, you have the rear left really giving out. He managed to make it stick, quite comfortably moving up to 13th position. But I think for George Russell being able to bridge out now a 1.8 second gap to Hamilton, that's so important, because he'll be able to manage his tyre, keep in the clear air, keep the brakes cool, keep the tyres cool, and importantly, Hamilton's not in the range to have overtake mode, so he won't be getting that additional power and regen to attack George. It's played wonderfully into Mercedes' hands here.
It has, and I can imagine that Lewis Hamilton will maybe slightly frustrated with not getting the jump. We've seen how quickly Ferrari are at starting on these recent races. Maybe not so much at the previous race in Monaco. It's hard to gain any ground really at the start of Monaco. We've got race control. Lindblad noted for leaving the track and gaining an advantage at turn 1. Yeah,
so that's actually, I saw him cut over turn 1 and 2 in the start, and the race director's notes, you have to follow a certain trajectory in a certain lane when you do cut the circuit, so that will be him rejoining not in the correct position.
So lap 4, and in control at the moment is George Russell. 2 seconds is the gap, and that is just constantly increasing as we're riding on board with Charles Leclerc now. He's trying to edge his way up to the back of Oscar Piastri. At the moment, he's around about 0.8 of a second behind his rival. It could potentially be a long race and maybe a frustrating race. Strategy might come into play here to help Charles Leclerc, who actually does seem to have the legs at least on Piastri and Verstappen. He's got a nice gap though behind, so not having to look in the mirror to defend from Liam Lawson. That gap is around about 2.7 seconds, so the top 7 separated by 7 seconds, and Lewis Hamilton again still drifting back from the rear of George Russell, 2.5 at the moment.
Charles is looking strong in the Ferrari, actually gaining two tenths in the middle sector alone this lap. He's really closing up to the back of Oscar Piastri, potentially looking for a move, going through turn 13, 14, potentially be close enough going into turn 1. Of course, the biggest braking, one of the biggest brakings on this track, one of the biggest overtaking opportunities.
Certainly is. Antonelli, though, is looking quick, looking super strong on that medium tyre up against Lewis Hamilton on the soft, and the soft naturally will start to degrade quicker than the medium tyre. And we're going to catch a replay of the race start, and it was just initially a really good launch from Lewis Hamilton. He was almost pulling level with George Russell. Just then that second phase wasn't able to make it count. He squeezed Antonelli slightly onto the grass, and then we thought at one stage that Norris was going to snatch P3 away from Antonelli, wasn't able to make it stick, and then Hamilton gave it a good look, was thinking about trying to go around the outside of George Russell, wasn't able to do so. Slightly further back, Abby on board with Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc actually super close to the slow start of Hajar, so we've seen why Hajar's dropped back so much. Just a really poor launch off the line for the Red Bull driver, but Charles Leclerc swooping around the outside of the racing bull into turn 1, didn't quite manage to make it stick, so we're now hearing the noise of Isaac Hajar. He just makes a slow start. Of course, the Red Bull in Monaco having a bad start for Mercedes, power unit issues. Hopefully there's nothing further for Hajar, but he just gets swallowed into turn 1, and he's got to try and make his way back through now with Pierre Gasly on the outside. Lots of cars going into turn 3. It's a bit of a mess actually, cars going around everywhere, but yeah, quite a tidy start as well for Pierre Gasly.
So as George Russell continues to stretch his legs at the head of the field here in Barcelona, let's throw to Queens and check in with how Emma Raducanu is getting on with Russell Fuller.
And the news, Alice, from a British perspective is bleak after the first set, which Donna Vekic has won in 29 minutes by 6 games to love. Raducanu won only 12 points. She's not serving as well as she can. She's not striking the ball with enough conviction. But Vekic has been pounding the ball from the baseline, returning brilliantly. Superb performance by the Wimbledon semi-finalist of 2 years ago, who's won the first set against Emma Raducanu by 6 games to love.
Thank you very much, Russell. And to a George Russell, who again is touching on 3 seconds to open the gap now over Lewis Hamilton. Kimi Antonelli's just dropped a little bit back, so I wonder if there will be potentially a bit say strategy game, more of a strategy, I would say, from Antonelli, Abby. Of course, when you get close to a car behind, you're going to hit that dirty air, you're going to get hot, turbulent air from the car in front. If Antonelli can't really find a way past, will he just elect to maybe just drop back, save his tyres, do a bit of tyre management at these stages on the race? We're on lap 7?
To be honest, I think looking at the pace of Hamilton, Kimi would be better off trying to make the move on Hamilton and getting the clear air ahead, because there's such a big gap now. As we're hearing Charles Leclerc on board, almost going into the back of Piastri, almost wiping them both out. That was quite dramatic into turn 1 there. But for Kimi, I think his best bet is to get past Hamilton, because there's clear air now. The Ferraris maybe opting to go longer on the soft, judging by their pace, because they are significantly slower.
And just to remind our listeners, you can catch all the action from Emma Raducanu in the final at Queen's now over on BBC One. But that was very close, as you mentioned there, Abby. Charles Leclerc just missing the rear of Oscar Piastri.
We all jumped out our seats a little bit, didn't we, and cringed at that.
We did. Ferrari looking so much faster than the McLaren. It's been a disappointing weekend, I would say, for McLaren. Their form is certainly puzzling us, because they were looking so strong going into the weekend, up in the top 3 in pretty much all the practice sessions, but just has not come together for them, obviously, when it counts in qualifying.
Yeah, but some of that close call into turn 1 with Charles partially could be down to the brakes. Of course, they're regenning quite a lot into turn 1. Maybe they're regenning a little bit less than what the McLaren is, and he just didn't expect the pace overlap, or maybe had an issue with the brakes. Of course, that was a big conversational topic for Ferrari in Monaco.
Yeah, that incident cost him a lot of time, but Charles Leclerc's right with Oscar Piastri again. He's going around the outside of turn 3, Alice.
He is round the outside for Charles Leclerc. This will be the outside, though, as he goes into turn 4, but he's got the move done. Up into 6th place for Charles Leclerc. He's looking hungry, he's looking racy. He said he was ashamed after his incident when going in the wall yesterday at turn 4. Felt sorry for the team, almost feeling sorry for himself as well, felt sorry for the fans. And constant, that word he kept saying, is ashamed. He was just so ashamed, but clearly has shaken that off and is trying to make moves forward now as we're back on board with Isaac Hadjar, who had that disastrous start, dropped right out of the top 10, but again looking racy all over the back of Arvid Lindblad, who's currently occupying P10 and the final points, but is under investigation along with Nico Hülkenberg for that infringement of the start, of just leaving the track and gaining an advantage. So we'll keep an eye on that when it does pop up on the screen. But at the moment, our order on, as we come towards the end of lap 9, is Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli, your top 3, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Lawson, Hülkenberg and Lindblad rounding out the top 10.
This is kind of getting into the stage where you're waiting for the first person to blink. Who's going to come in? We're on lap 9, so the pit windows will be coming up fairly soon for the soft runners. We're predicting around lap 12 to 18, as we see Isaac Hadjar going around the outside at turn 1. Didn't quite make it stick on Arvid Lindblad. Arvid shoveled him wide, was like, you will not pass.
He was absolutely slammed the door in his face, didn't we? We've got a battle further back as well between the two Alpines. Colapinto ahead of Gasly at the moment, 0.3 of gap as they went through turn 3 there. I wonder if at the moment, very shortly, we'll get Gasly on the radio saying, I'm faster, let me through. Gasly, though, on the medium tyre. We'll hear from Norris.
On ladder, how's the pace, how's the tyres? Just sliding everywhere.
So Norris struggling for grip out there, but Gasly on the medium tyre, Colapinto on the soft, and Norris is on the mediums, but not really had the pace. He's starting to drop back off the back of Antonelli now.
One thing we haven't noticed or haven't mentioned yet is Lance Stroll is out in the Aston Martin with a gearbox issue, so that's not good news for the Aston Martin crew.
Yeah, good spot there, Abby. We've not seen it on our screens. It's turned from running in 22nd to out now on our timing screen, as Leclerc is looking racy. He's looking hungry. He was around about 2 seconds off the back plus of Max Verstappen, but this time round on lap 10 he's closed that down to 1.1 as straight mode is activated on both the Ferrari and the Red Bulls, they come through into turn 4. They'll come out, go downhill into the tricky braking zone of turn 5. So easy to snatch a front left tyre going into there. And of course, that's where we saw last year that incident between Max Verstappen and George Russell in the final stages of the Grand Prix. They then come uphill through the tricky chicane before you reach turn 9, the blind, flat out turn 9, into our final straight mode zone of the lap. Dive onto the brakes into turn 10, where we've seen a variety of lines and still getting a variety of lines out there. Max Verstappen running slightly wider than Charles Leclerc. And possibly, well, these variety of lines, Abby, just mean that Charles Leclerc's taking that tighter line to just try and get a bit of clean air, get a bit more downforce on the front end of his Ferrari.
Exactly, and not only that, it will help cool down the brakes, of course, and the tyres. Getting air on the front wing is really important to be able to, like you say, get that clearer air and more weight on the front wing, so when you turn in, the car actually turns in. It's a really bizarre feeling when you're following so closely behind, as we get a shot of the back of Max Verstappen's car, the straight mode opening into turn 4. It's really important to get that air on the front wing, and also it'll help the front slide less, so that you don't overheat the front axle with slipping on the front. Of course, we've heard Lando Norris, heard it sliding everywhere. It sounds more like the rear axle. We always knew it was going to be a battle of nutrition, this race.
It is, and Max Verstappen's going to be seeing the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc getting bigger and bigger in his mirrors. It's under a second, the gap between the two of them now, 0.6 of a second to be precise. And that gap is stabilised a little bit out front now, Abby. 3.4.
Yeah, it's looking like a lot for the tyres. I'm even wobbling on the straight. It's quite impressive. Copy.
Well, a bit of sarcasm, of course, there from Max Verstappen. And Hamilton is coming up on our timing screens, is into the pit, so making a pit stop off this soft tyre already. In he comes. A nice clean stop from Ferrari. On goes the hard tyre, and that was a solid stop. 2.5, not the quickest that we can see from Ferrari, but still a nice clean stop.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much solidified what Ferrari are going for with Hamilton. I think they're going for a three-stop strategy there on that side of the garage. It's quite early, to be honest, to be going in, so we'll see how he manages. He didn't really seem happy on that soft tyre, Lewis. He lost a lot of ground, as we also see Liam Lawson coming in for a stop.
That was a slow stop from Liam Lawson, 6.3 seconds, should I say. But yeah.
So Lewis in. He's probably going for a 3.
He's obviously tuning into our coverage, Abby, there, because that's exactly what you just said.
Yeah, it took the words right out of my mouth. It seems that George Russell there on the radio doesn't seem to believe they're going to go for a 3-stop. That sounds like they're on for a 2-stop strategy, obviously starting on the medium. He seems, although saying that, George Russell now in the pits, box on his team radio, so we'll see how fast this is from the Mercedes crew.
Yep, so the pace was looking strong for Russell out front. It's a smoother stop than we've seen from the Ferrari, only by 1/10 of a second, so 2.4 for Russell. Into the pits as well comes Max Verstappen from 6th place, pulls up to his Red Bull crew, off comes the soft tyre. On goes the medium tyre, I think. Is that the medium there on the Red Bull? 2.5 the stop from him. So there's that midfield bunch has kind of spread out quite nicely for the front rollers to slot into a space. So he's going to come out behind Lindblad, but we've got a charging Alpine of Gasly coming down, but he's actually slotted in very nicely there between the RB and the Alpine. He will pick off Lindblad, I expect, very quickly, but the gap between Russell and Hamilton, now they've both boxed. It's pretty close. It's just over 1.5 seconds.
George and Mercedes, I think, have done that and boxed maybe earlier than planned as a knee-jerk reaction to Hamilton, as Hamilton is looking like this hard compound that he's put on. He's looking really fast and has actually closed the gap to George in the pit stops.
Yeah, they've chosen to keep track position. The choice is, do you pit after the person? Because Hamilton's gained 2 seconds just on that one lap on his new tyres. That's the power of what they call the undercut, as we see Lando and Norris coming in now in the McLaren. They're all responding to each other. But there is a different strategy choice you can make, is to keep running if your tyres have got reasonable condition, and then you get what they call an offset, which can gain you back the position later on. But they've chosen to lock in that first place, and we'll see how that. But what it means is that they're still on slightly different strategies, because of course Hamilton started on the soft and Russell started on the medium. So we'll have to see how that plays out over the next 2 stops, because it probably means that if Hamilton was on a 3 stop, as you say, Abby, then Russell might be on one now as well.
So Lando Norris out on the hard tyre, as in the pits comes Nico Hülkenberg from 12th. So a disappointing start for him. But certainly I was kind of puzzled slightly, Andrew, because the pace of Lewis Hamilton was actually fairly strong. They were kind of doing the same time, lapping around the 1:23.5s, comparing to Russell, but obviously felt like he was maybe going to be a little bit more comfortable coming in on that medium tyre.
Yeah, it's an interesting development, isn't it? Interested to hear some Russell radio.
I was managing in that first stint. Should have given me the heads up. You've exposed me to Kimi now.
I don't think it's going to be long for everyone.
I need an update on the plan then. We moving towards the Prix, do you think?
So still on plan here, George. Nothing to worry about here.
Okay, so he's worried about being beaten by Antonelli, being overcut by him, I guess. But here's Antonelli into the pits now, so that's probably put that to bed, that concern for Russell. So obviously Mercedes and Piastri is about to come in as well. Mercedes are obviously seeing more wear on those tyres than they were expecting, even though Russell was managing them in the first stint, which is interesting. We were hearing before the race, weren't we, Alice, that all the 3 tyres behave very similarly to each other. So maybe that's what we're beginning to see happen.
So Kimi Antonelli, it's a clean stop by him, but he comes out crucially behind George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, just in front of Lando Norris, who's going to have his tyres up to temperature. Remember, the track temperature's very high here, 30 degrees air, 51 track, so it's not like we're going to see it in Monaco where it's hard for them to generate a bit of optimal tyre temperature. But Lando is going to try and seize the opportunity potentially as pit stops continue to take place. Gasly in the pits from Sainz, Charles Leclerc, who's currently holding the race lead but yet to stop, he's being called in this lap as well.
Yeah, it seems like majority of drivers are potentially committing to this 3-stop tyres going away from them quicker than they expected. But I'm surprised from Antonelli's side of the garage they didn't try and do something a little bit different to George and Hamilton, and maybe prolonged and extended.
And box Charles, box. We have the gap to cover Piastri.
We don't care about Piastri. Let's look further ahead if we have the pace.
Okay, let me know on flat. We stay out this lap then. Stay out this lap.
So that's exactly kind of what I was saying I expected Kimi Antonelli to do, is extend his run and keep running, which is what Charles Leclerc has told his side of the garage. No, I want to keep going. We're not looking to cover Piastri. We're looking to push forwards and attack the top 4.
And actually riding on board with Charles Leclerc at the moment, his tyres look pretty good. He's being nice and smooth. Abby Hadjar is the next one to come into pit. So Leclerc feeling confident and looking to try and make back ground, of course, that he lost yesterday on the hard tyre for Hadjar. Comes out of the pits. Let's check in with Russell Fuller at the tennis,
where Emma Raducanu has a foothold in this Queen's final, having lost the first set 6-love in just 29 minutes to Donna Vekic. She held to love in her opening service game of the second set and has her first break of serve of the match, so leads Vekic 2-1 second set.
So looking good for Raducanu so far, and looking good for George Russell as well. Bottas is being called into the pits to retire the car, so not ideal for him, Abby. And we're just getting up on our screen as our Charles Leclerc being called into box. Is he going to box this time though? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, not only that, it's a bit of a nightmare on the Williams side of the garage, as Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz are both under investigation for 2 different infringements, so hopefully no penalties for both of their cars, as that would be a bit of a nightmare.
So in the pits comes Charles Charles Leclerc is a little bit slow on the front right as he goes over to the hard tyre. Behind him is the Cadillac of Bottas coming in to pit.
So what's interesting about that is it feels like it's relatively soon after all the others, but actually compared to Russell and Hamilton at front, Leclerc's now got a 5 and 6 lap tyre offset, and in the course of the race that could become really important. It could allow him to do a 2-stop, for example, potentially. So I think we should keep an eye on Leclerc. He could very much a contender for the podium, at least I would say, maybe even a bit more.
3 drivers yet to pit out there. That's Lindblad, who's currently in 8th, Behrman in 9th, and Fernando Alonso, who started in pit lane down in 17th. So on lap 17, a run through for a majority of pit stops that have taken place as Bottas is wheeled into the garage to retire once again this season. It's Russell that leads the way from Leclerc, Hamilton, Antonelli, Norris, Verstappen complete your top 5. Leclerc, Piastri, Lindblad, Behrman yet to stop, Hadjar in 10th, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Colapinto, Gasly. That Alpine battle still raging on from Sainz in 15th, Ocon 16th, Alonso, Bortoletto, Albon, Perez, and then your 2 retirements of Bottas and Stroll. So out front at the moment, Abby, 1.9 is the gap between Lewis Hamilton, and just looking at the pace last time round, George Russell a 1:21.7, Lewis Hamilton a 1:22.0.
Yeah, as we also just saw a replay of Isaac Hadjar sweeping past the Racing Bull of Liam Lawson. Isaac's making some ground back up, now going past the house of Ollie Behrman. Of course, Ollie yet to stop, 16 laps he's done on that medium tyre. Seems like they're playing a different strategy there for Haas and Ollie Behrman, as well as Arvid Lindblad in the Racing Bull. Them two not opting to stop yet. They're playing the long game. They're nursing them tyres. I can imagine a lot of the drivers were complaining by lap 10 that they were skating about. So they are probably in a world of pain right now.
Yeah, the hard seems to be going reasonably well. It's not just down the field. Ollie Behrman started on the hard. Obviously, he's not stopped, and this is not relevant to anything at all to do with the race. But Alonso, who also started on the hard from the pit lane, he hasn't stopped either. So they are obviously finding that the hard can go a little bit longer. You would expect that, despite the fact that the teams were saying before the race that all 3 tyres were actually behaving quite similarly. They have different characteristics, perhaps, but so that's what's interesting about this next stint now. Can Leclerc extend this stint on the hard tyre enough to put him into a 2-stop strategy, which could put him in contention right at the front?
Lewis Hamilton holds the fastest lap of the race as now George Russell's dipped into the 1:22, similar pace to Lewis Hamilton. Antonelli looking strong, but he is 5.7 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, but he's just at a first personal best of the race of a 1:22.6 as we've got a battle raging down for the final points paying position in this Grand Prix. Liam Lawson is through and past Ollie Behrman.
Yeah, that was it's an unorthodox overtake that. On the exit of turn 12, we're seeing the drivers that have a bit more tyre life be able to accelerate a bit harder and use the traction they have available over their competitors. So on the exit of turn 12, not your normal place, but in this Grand Prix seems to have happened more often than not.
Behrman's come into the pits now, so he's going to drop further down the order, which has freed up those behind him, which was Hulkenberg, Colapinto and Gasly. So that's a bit of that's a good fight that we've got there at the moment for that final points paying position, because they're all within a couple of seconds of each other, and then there's a bigger gap back from Sainz in 14th. But that gap is pretty much staying exactly the same out front. Lewis Hamilton 1.9 seconds off as a kick of the rear again from Oscar Piastri as he comes out of turn 12.
Kimi Antonelli actually is, I think, one to look at the moment. He was half a second quicker on that last lap compared to George and Hamilton. Both of them, funny enough, doing identical lap times almost. So Antonelli seems he's got confidence. He's setting green sectors. He's chasing down the 2 leaders, kind of trying to put himself back in contention for the lead of this race and setting himself up.
Okay, Franco, this is an instruction. We need to switch cars into turn 1, please. Switch into turn 1.
Switch cars?
Haytham, so into turn 4, please. Turn 4, switch the cars.
It's 1.5 seconds, Mark. What are you preaching?
So frustration from Colapinto on the radio, but that switch has 100% taken place. Gasly is now ahead of his teammate Colapinto, and the switch actually took place not into turn 1, not into turn 4, but into turn 10 in the end. They obviously still had a bit of toing and froing of negotiation there. Negotiation. Colapinto says he wasn't even pushing, and I can imagine we might catch a radio message in the next few laps of Colapinto saying that he's faster than Gasly, but we'll have to wait and see. Kimi Antonelli now is creeping up to the back of Lewis Hamilton. Gap is still 4.6 seconds on the hard tyre. Lando Norris is around about 2.4 seconds back from Antonelli. I don't think he's going to be a real threat to him at the moment. Pace-wise, he's about 2 to 3 tenths slower than Antonelli. Then Max Verstappen's in a bit of a race of his own in 5th place. Hamilton being told on the radio is on plan C, so we'll have to work out or wait and see what that plan is. But Arvid Lindblad has got Isaac Hadjar all over the back of him, and that's going to be an easy move for the Red Bull driver down into turn 1, into 8th place for Hadjar.
That slightly longer run that Charles has done on his first set of tyres, I think is paying in his favour, because he's almost a second a lap faster than the two leaders of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. The only other driver really close to his pace is Kimi Antonelli, who's also kind of ebbing and flowing between being half a second kind of in the middle of the two, as like we hear from Antonelli.
Hey, firm Kimi. Good lap times.
Kimi just checking in with his engineer Bono, who he had a few words were exchanged between these two in free practice 3, where Antonelli got hampered by traffic twice on his soft tyre run, and Bono was having to calm him down. But he's impressed with the youngster once again at the moment, setting good lap times out there. He has dropped off a little bit to the back of Lewis Hamilton, but every driver out there is on the hard tyre at the moment, all bar Max Verstappen in 5th and Arvid Lindblad down in 9th, who of course just lost that place to Hadjar. He's got a good gap though at the moment to his teammate Liam Lawson. So both racing bulls at the moment in the points. Had a strong weekend of course last time out with their personal best for both drivers. Hadjar lost that podium of course in the end to Pierre Gasly, which would have been one of the personal best results for him, getting his 2nd podium in Formula 1, but he'll have to wait to get that 2nd podium, because it was taken away and given to Pierre Gasly in the end. Further down the order, Abby, we've got a bit of a battle going on between Hülkenberg and Liam Lawson. That battle for the final point continues on lap 22.
Yeah, Nico really pushing on, trying to get past the racing bull. Started in the top 10, dropped out of it briefly, but he's really pushing on in this middle sector actually. Turn 4 taking a different line, going much wider than the racing bull. Try and get that clear air on his front wing to edge that a little bit closer. Now going through turn 7 and 8, where the tyre is screaming by this point, into turn 9. Ran a little bit wide there from Nico mid-corner. Straight mode activated, now going down into the heavy braking of turn 10, waiting for the tyre to give you anything at this part of the lap, swooping into turn 12. Liam kind of seems pretty composed, no massive snaps of the wheel, keeping that tyre as happy as it can be.
Verstappen's been told on the radio that Leclerc is very much our race behind.
Yeah, Leclerc actually is actually getting faster and faster as the laps go on, whereas all the cars ahead are going a tenth or two slower each lap. So it's a really kind of big shift in the difference on approach from our top 6. And yeah, I think Leclerc is edging forward again. Another green sector, sector 1, a strong sector 2. He's setting purples in the speed traps. He's really a man on a mission at the moment.
He certainly is. So just on lap 24, it was George Russell that got a great getaway. Lewis Hamilton was looking to possibly sneak up alongside, but that second phase of the start not giving him the purchase he wanted on that soft tyre. He was challenged by Antonelli into turn 1, and Lando Norris was looking to have a go at the inside of Antonelli, wasn't able to make it stick. Hamilton then gave it a charge to try and get a move done into turn 3, but wasn't able to do so. And then since then Russell has taken command of this race. We've had the first round of pit stops and they're all out pretty much on the hard tyre, all bar Max Verstappen. And Lindblad's in the pits now, so he's taken his pit stop. So Max Verstappen's the only driver on the medium tyre at the moment, everyone else on the hard. So our order as it stands as we come to the end of lap 24 is Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli, the top three, from Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Hadjar, Lawson and Hulkenberg.
Looking
up
in his mirrors.
Points paying position as he is looking in his mirrors is Liam Lawson. This battle probably going to go on all afternoon between the Audi driver of Hulkenberg and Liam Lawson. Hulkenberg, of course, after his first points of the season. And he's all over the back, and he's actually dragging along Pierre Gasly. Of course, he was instructed to overtake his teammate. Colapinto was ordered to let him have the place, and Colapinto has actually lost a lot of pace. He's dropped back, way back off the back of his teammate. 2.5 seconds is the gap now. So we've got a three-way battle for 9th place at the moment, Abby.
Yeah, it's getting really close here, and a really great point you mentioned is Pierre Gasly being let through, as we hear from Hulkenberg.
Right on the braking. Dangerous.
So that was Hulkenberg making a comment into turn one. Liam Lawson fending aggressively, a little bit late, albeit I don't think it will be anything too much to look at by the FIA and the clerk, but very aggressive from Liam. He really wants to keep this position and keep his track position to give him the best possible chances of finishing in the points by the end of this race.
Yeah, he's going to do anything and say anything over the radio to try and get a penalty. And Colapinto is in 12th from Sainz, Bortoletto, Ocon, Lindblad in 16th, who's not long pitted, Behrman, Albon, Perez and Alonso is your final runner, but a long way behind Perez. And then we've had 2 retirements so far during this race of Bottas and Stroll. Well, once again, Abby, he was looking hungry around the outside of Liam Lawson into turn 3. Wasn't able to make it stick, was Hulkenberg. Lando Norris, though, looking at the times at the moment, a couple of tenths quicker the last few laps than Kimi Antonelli, and he's starting to close that gap on the back of the Mercedes driver. So it's 1.7 is the gap now. So McLaren, who had a strong start to the weekend and were looking strong in free practice, had a disappointing qualifying session with Oscar starting in 7th and Lando qualifying in 4th, seem to have got some pace now, and he's storming up to the back of Kimi Antonelli. Yeah, exactly. Kimi Antonelli and Lando Norris are kind of charging through together. They're both lapping at very similar times, about a tenth or two away from each other, whereas the cars ahead, they're lapping in the 123s. You know, these two drivers, Kimi and Lando, are in the 122s, so there's quite a big disparity, and I think we'll see the likes of Kimi and Norris kind of not helping each other out, but they're going to come through both at similar times.
Yeah, we've got up front, we've got Russell under control from Hamilton. He's just slightly extending that gap every lap. It's about 2.4 seconds at the moment. But you're right, Antonelli and Norris are kind of both collectively moving towards the two leaders, and behind them Verstappen's struggling, but Leclerc is gaining on him, and looks like he should find Verstappen pretty easy meet. He's only 2.5 seconds behind at the moment, closing at about half a second a lap thereabouts. So I would imagine Leclerc will pass Verstappen, and then we'll see whether he can get up onto the back of that top 4 of Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli and Norris, which seem to be sort of concertinaing together at the moment.
Now, we've just seen on the radio George Russell struggling with the front axle on braking. It's moving around, and he's not quite happy with how the tyres are feeling. And we actually heard or have seen on the radio as well that he was told a couple of laps ago that these laps are crucial for George by his engineer and it'll decide the race almost for him, and if he can maintain this gap and keep pulling out a gap and maintain this track position.
And when your engineer comes across the radio and says those laps are crucial, but you've got a tyre that you need to nurse and look after, Abby,
that's wobbling about under braking.
That's a challenge, and they're coming up to some traffic as well, so they're having to navigate that too. Antonelli is coming up to the back of one of the Haas cars, who's actually moved quite nicely out of the way for him, as Antonelli's closed the gap to 1.2 of Lewis Hamilton now. but I do wonder if Hamilton, we've seen no reports of him or anything on the radio just yet, as into the pits dives Lewis Hamilton, so that's going to set Antonelli free. They need a better stop than they had before. He locks up the brakes as he enters pit lane, doesn't want to get caught speeding this time. As he pulls in, Ferrari poised and waiting, nice and slow into the pit stop. Off come the hard tyre, on go the medium tyre for Lewis Hamilton. Similar stop to what we saw last time round for him. And I think, Abby, he's possibly going to slot in to a nice gap of traffic. And that's going to be between Oscar Piastri in 6th. So Hamilton's going to slot into 7th. And then he's got a huge gap behind him of Hadjar. So he's going to have to navigate through and pass Piastri, but he's on a fresh set of medium tyres as Hamilton.
Yeah, that's actually earlier than I expected them to come, especially for a 3-stop strategy. They're really struggling out there with the tyres. It must have been something on the radio, Lewis maybe saying that the tyres just aren't manageable, because you want to really prolong this as long as possible, get every ounce of energy out of these tyres. I mean, this is where he's going to try and undercut the likes of the Mercedes of George Russell. Potentially works into his favour if he can get that track position, be the car leading. Maybe he's suffering a bit more with his tyres because he has been following George. He's got that dirty air, tyres overheating, so he wants to get track position and get ahead and clear out.
Yeah, that's the decision that Mercedes have got now. Do they do what they did at the first stop and answer Hamilton to keep track position, or do they stay on their 2-stop strategy, which is what they appear to be on, and just let him go for now?
I think going off the back of what they said and what George said earlier on in the race, he was saying, why are we doing that? Because we're opening ourselves up to Kimi, and I have a feeling George will kind of put his foot down and say, no, I want to extend it a bit.
To update, Lewis will be on a 3. We are still racing at Norris, so we need to keep these lap times going.
So that's to Russell, who says we're still racing at Norris. So Hamilton's just got past one of the McLarens. That was Oscar Piastri. They had to navigate a little bit of traffic as well of Sergio Perez. So Hamilton's set free to now chase down his teammate. 5.9 is the gap to Charles Leclerc at the moment. And I'm just having a look at the lap times here between the likes of George Russell, Antonelli last time round 1 second quicker than his teammate, so he dropped off the pace. He's starting to ramp the pace up once again. Is Kimi. 2.2 is the gap between the two Mercedes drivers out front now.
So give me black and white flag for track limits, so no more of those please, otherwise it's a 5-second penalty.
So already on lap 30, we're not even halfway through this race, and Kimi Antonelli is being told by his engineer no more track limits. He's on his final warning, and if he goes past, all 4 wheels past that white line at any of the corners around this circuit, that will be a penalty. Into the pits comes Max Verstappen. It's a slow on the front left for the Red Bull crew. On goes the hard tyre, out of the pits with a 4.5 second stop. But that's not really going to affect him. Well, it will in the battle between himself and Oscar Piastri for 6th place. But he's going to easily slot into that big gap between himself, between Piastri, and Hadjar.
I just want to say how impressive Kimi Antonelli's pace is at the moment compared to his teammate. He's got only 2 lap fresher tyres on his car, yet he's still edging a much bigger margin. He should only really be 2 or 3 tenths a lap faster than his teammate, but he's what is that, 6 tenths a lap quicker. So by 3 or 4 laps we can see him right on the tail of his teammate.
Well, a lap or so ago, Abby, it was 2 seconds was the gap. It's now 1.1. Lewis Hamilton's just set the fastest lap on the of the race on that medium set of tyre, as we're on to lap 31 now. As it stands in between these pit stops, Russell, Antonelli, Norris your top 3 from Leclerc, Hamilton, Piastri, Verstappen, Hadjar round out the top 8. The battle still continues for 9th place. That's between Lawson, then Gasly 10th, Colapinto, Sainz, Bortoletto, Limbad, Behrman, Ocon, your top 16, and in the pits is Nico Hülkenberg from 17th. Albon is also in the pits, then Perez 19th, and Alonso, the final of the runners, in 20th. And it seems like an issue, Abby, for Hülkenberg in the Audi. He was looking to be on course to get his first points of the season. They have put on a fresh set of tyres. They've put the car down on the ground, but they've put the fans in to have a look, and mechanics all over the car, so it looks like possibly for Hulkenberg could be the end of its afternoon. But there's a battle up front between Russell and Kimi Antonelli. 7/10 is the gap now.
Kimi Antonelli on the last lap was 1.1 seconds quicker than George Russell. He is the tyre whisperer, and he's now within a second. He's 7/10 off of George Russell. Now going through the last sector, there's a bit of traffic to navigate, but he's going to have a go into turn one. He's got overtake mode. He's able to regen his battery more. He's got more deployment, and going onto the onto the main straight, he's within half a second of George Russell.
He's going to get that benefit as well of overtake, which gives that opportunity to give that little bit of extra power potentially to him to make a pass. He's within 1 second, so he's going to get that across the whole lap. So let's see what Mercedes do here. I wonder, Andrew, if there will be a bit of communication between both drivers, because it does seem at the moment that Antonelli has the upper hand on pace.
I think that they're going to want to race. Here's Hamilton, by the way, just being let past Leclerc. They're on different strategies. They're going to want to race, and Russell's not going to want to let him by. So he's got the overtake mode, Antonelli. That means he gets more, half a megajoule more energy per lap. Not any more power, but he can deploy it for longer. Here's Hamilton's radio.
Let me know what times I need to do. 20.9, Charlie's in forward. You have a different strategy.
So that's Ferrari just explaining to Hamilton what he needs to do. He's being being let know that Leclerc in front of him was on a different strategy. So Hamilton's on 3, Leclerc's on 2, like the two Mercedes drivers. Here they are running together now. Russell ahead, Antonelli right on his tail, Alice, as they come through turn 10 towards the end of the lap.
And remember when we had last time we had two Mercedes race aggressively with each other, that was 10 years ago, and that ended in disaster as Charles Leclerc is getting a well done across the radio. But it is very close, Abby. 3/10 the gap between the Mercedes drivers.
Yeah, these two are absolutely neck and neck, and Kimi Antonelli is looking so fast right now. I mean, this battling is going to play into the hands of Lewis Hamilton.
And George Russell have to go over to defend into turn 1. Can Kimi Antonelli get it round the outside? He doesn't, but George runs slightly wide. That's going to massively put Russell vulnerable as he goes into turn 3. He goes slightly wide again in turn 3. Antonelli trying to take the title line, but thinks better of it. Doesn't want to have a repeat as they head into turn 4. Toto Wolff will have to look away from the screen. But for now, George Russell is under heaps of pressure. So far, he's been having it all under control, but not at the moment.
Now, remember, in Canada, the drivers said to Toto Wolff afterwards, we know how to race, just let us get on with it. So that's what they will be doing that right now, but it won't mean that Toto Wolff is any less anxious in the pit lane. Abby, you were going to make a point.
Yeah, I think them two battling, the two Mercedes battling, is going to play right into Ferrari's hands. They're wasting time, essentially, when they're going wheel to wheel, and their strategy almost goes a bit out of the window to an extent.
That's a crucial statement there, Abby, because last time around, Lewis Hamilton on 120.8.
Give me a reminder for track limits. Let's not take any risks.
So being reminded, because that could be potentially a 5-second penalty coming along. So 120.8 from Lewis Hamilton last lap round. And the two Mercedes, a 123.4 from George Russell and a 123.7 from Kimi Antonelli. And they lost around about 6-7 tenths from having that battle on the last lap. So you're right, it does cost, of course, a lot of time when you're battling amongst yourselves.
Not just time, but tyre wear as well, and tyre wear is so critical in this race. If they battle too hard, then they're going to make themselves vulnerable on that level as well as not just time.
No, exactly that, Andrew, is the gap stretched out ever so slightly between the pair at the moment. 8 tenths it is the gap now. So George has gathered himself together, and as it edges towards 1 second, Norris is 3.9 seconds back from this battle. So he was racing and charging up to the back of Antonelli, has dropped back once more. But let's quickly hop to Queen's Russell Fuller,
where Emma Raducanu had opened up a double break advantage in the second set, but she's been broken back by Donna Vekic when serving for it. So Raducanu now leads 5-3, trying to level this Queen's Club final at 1 set all.
Coverage continues on BBC One now, as that gap has still stayed around 7 tenths of a second. Hamilton's come on the radio and said, am I catching them? And he certainly is at the moment. He's lost.
Kimi, it won't be long for George. We are at risk from Norris behind, 3.9 seconds.
And It's now 4.4 seconds is the gap, so Norris losing a little bit of time. And with that message to Kimi Antonelli, it's 6/10. He's had a very good first couple of corners, Abby, as we ride on board with him down into turn 4 now. Do you feel that Antonelli is thinking, yeah, you're saying I'm racing Norris, but I want the win?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly showing that he wants to win, and he wants to win on a race where it's all down to strategies. We hear from Kimi now.
So let's not slow each other down racing. We need to keep that gap to Norris nice and healthy, now at 4.3.
So that's exactly what I was saying earlier, that them battling, they're going to lose ground, they're going to lose time. There's Peter Bonington, who's very experienced now with managing Mercedes cars and rivalries. He's thinking a bigger picture.
And what they're talking about there is 4 seconds sounds like a lot, but if we remember, we were talking about before the race, Verstappen last year made up 4 seconds in one lap with an earlier pit stop. That's what Mercedes are concerned about, whether Norris can pit before them and get the track position from fresh tyres. And here they are coming onto the pit straight. Antonelli still pretty close to Russell, but looks a little bit too far behind to have a go this time round, Alice.
Yeah, half a second is the gap, and they want to watch McLaren's now as in the pits is being called Lando Norris. Kimi Antonelli has a look down the inside of turn 1, but it would have been brave. In the pits, this has got to be a clean, smooth stop from the McLaren crew, and it is so far off. And a brand new set, I think, is that hard tyres that's bolted on to Lando Norris. Out the pits he comes. Half a second still the gap between the top 2. Lap 36 here in Barcelona. George Russell getting the call on the radio to come into the pits. That will then set free his teammate, and we'll see what the real pace is of Kimi Antonelli, who's, you could say, been slowed down here by his teammate. Lewis Hamilton continuing to set decent laps, around about 1.5 to 2 seconds quicker than the Mercedes pair at the moment. He's out there on the medium tyre, still holds the fastest lap of the race, as it's Russell, Antonelli, Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri, your top 5 from Norris, Verstappen, Hadjar, Lawson, Gasly rounding out the top 10. And then Lindblad, Colapinto, Behrman, Sainz, Bortoletto, top 15 from Ocon, and Alonso and Albon in the pits as well, and Perez just behind. Hulkenberg is yet to still come out. He's not saying that he is out, as Russell into the pits, sets free his teammate, jumps on the anchors as he comes in. Mechanic on the side indicates where his pit box will be. He's got to line up on his marks absolutely perfectly as this Mercedes pit crew get underway, smoking brakes from George Russell, and that's a lovely clean stop. 2.8 seconds for a Mercedes. They are able to do quicker than that, but he's going to slot back, Abby, into the gap as we just have a look behind. So he's going to be in front of Norris. So of course he comes out in front of Norris, who's got a good buffer in front as well to Charles Leclerc. Around about, if it timing screen updates, I think it's around about 7 seconds to Charles Leclerc in front. Piastri's been called into box as well.
That was really important for Kimi Antonelli as we hear his radio here.
It won't be long, Kimi. Got to cover Norris.
We're not, I mean, they're not playing the reply of Antonelli, or Antonelli is fully focused on managing his tyres. But if I was Antonelli, Abby, and I don't know about you, obviously the team know a lot more as we see George Russell actually running, actually that was Antonelli running slightly wide into turn 10. I'd be thinking, I'm going to try and go for the win here. He's clearly going to see Lewis Hamilton in his mirrors. As actually Antonelli is being called into the pits, so that's going to set free Lewis Hamilton, because the gap there was about 1 second.
Yeah, calling Antonelli in, not kind of letting him undercut his teammate. I think that was a little bit making sure that they can cover each other off from the cars behind.
That was a bumpy drop there of the Mercedes car back onto the tarmac for Antonelli. The front jack being released first instead of them coming down together. So that has set Antonelli free, a brand new set of hard tyres bolted on to his Mercedes machine, and he's going to come out in a whole heap of traffic. And when I say traffic, that's lapped cars. He's going to come out in the clutches of Lando Norris, who's going to be all over the back of the Mercedes driver. They're going to have traffic of Behrman in front of him, and under pressure is Antonelli, but he's trying desperately to light up this hard tyre. Behrman jumps out of the way into turn 4. Of course, Lando Norris on an older set of hard tyres, but not by much though, as they come through into turn 5, and it just looks about Antonelli has done enough in these opening corners of coming out of pit lane to hold off that battle of the charging Lando Norris.
Yeah, I mean, he was very, very much under pressure there by Lando. It was very close out the pit lane, but managed to keep track position, which is very vital for them in the long run, and making sure he's still got the sights of George Russell in his... just down the road from him. He really, really wants this win, and you can see it in how he's driving, and the team, I think, are trying to give him the best possible option for that. But like we say, he needs to be careful of those track limits. The more he pushes, the more risk he takes, the more he's in risk of getting that dreaded track limits penalty.
Yes, he's got to be careful, hasn't he? And more traffic for George Russell. He comes up to the Alpine, goes down the inside. Crucially though, Charles Leclerc is just up the road, who's actually just been called into box. That could totally put out what I'm about to say. I was wondering whether Ferrari might play a bit of a tactic here and try and back up Russell for Lewis Hamilton.
And we are planning other 7 laps on this set. This is our race. Give everything these 7 laps. It's the critical moment. We have our chance.
Hamilton being told this is the critical moment. Andrew.
So what he's saying there, Hamilton is leading at the moment. He's 16.8 seconds ahead of Russell. Russell's going to close some time on Hamilton on these 7 laps before Hamilton makes his own final stop. Then why it's critical is they don't want to have too big a gap. Hamilton has fresher tyres when he comes out from his stop later than Russell, and can he catch him again before the end of the race?
Leclerc has really backed off the pace in this final lap of this tour on lap 39 here in Barcelona. He's holding up desperately George Russell, who throws one down the inside into turn 12. He knows exactly what kind of game the Ferrari driver's playing, and wasn't going to have any of it was George Russell. So he's set 3. So Charles Leclerc comes into the pits now, and that's also released Antonelli. So we're just going to have a look at our timing screen, Abby, to see if that's potentially slowed him down, and it has. So it's slowed George Russell down now on that last lap by just over 0.6 of a second. In comes Charles Leclerc, off comes a used hard tyre, on goes a brand new set of hards.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis Hamilton is struggling a little bit now. His times are dropping off more so. He's lapping around a 1:21.8, whereas Kimi Antonelli on that new set of tyres did a 1:20.9 last lap around. So they're going to catch him. It's just how long can Hamilton fend him off.
And we are forecast to be battling with Lewis end of race on that 3-stop.
We've got a yellow flag out there, and Fernando Alonso has stopped at turn 9. So pitting under a VSC or safety car conditions can save you around about 11 seconds. So we'll keep an eye on that. We haven't caught where if he's pulled over into a safe place. He's actually on the inside of turn 9, so virtual safety car is out. Fernando Alonso takes off the wheel. He's going to be jumping out of his Aston Martin. His run for Aston Martin continues to worsen. Brakes are steaming a little bit, Abby.
Yeah, it looks like Fernando is very, very well off in turn 9. Whether it was his own doing or a mechanical issue, but this is the question we ask now as we see the Red Bull pit crew getting ready to receive a car. The time loss in the virtual safety car is a lot less, so this could be potentially where we see Hamilton come into the pits for his final stop and have a less of a deficit to the cars behind us. He's got a 21-second gap over Russell, so it would make sense.
Max Verstappen in, but that's a very close, but that possibly an unsafe release there, getting in the way and being released into the path of Ollie Behrman in the Haas. Ferrari did run out with the tyres, but then quickly ran back in, and it was who knows, that it was probably for, of course, Lewis Hamilton, but decided against it. So at the moment we've got a 20-second lead for Lewis Hamilton.
Potentially waiting to see if this is promoted to a full safety car, as it is a car to be recovered. It is a possibility, and oftentimes virtual safety cars kind of escalate into something more. We'll see. I mean, we're on board now with Lewis Hamilton going around turn 12, maybe a late dive into the pits. He would take the virtual lead if he was to.
Yeah, so let's keep an eye on this. And Ferrari are running out into pit lane. Hamilton being called into box. Out comes a brand new set of hard tyre into the pits. Does Hamilton push? He's got a little bit of traffic in front of him in pit lane, but it's clear enough for him. So this has got to be nailed by Ferrari into the pits. This is going to be timed perfectly.
Beautifully.
Lewis Hamilton, a smooth stop for Ferrari, and off he goes. He is released, but he's in the path of the Alpine. He's going to have to back out, or I think he might get away with having an unsafe release. George Russell is coming down the main straight. Out goes Lewis Hamilton, remember, under virtual safety car conditions, but it's going to be enough. Lewis Hamilton takes the lead here in Barcelona, and the crowd erupt as the two Mercedes drivers come down the main straights. Their hearts will sink with Lewis Hamilton on the fresher set of tyres, pats on the back from the Ferrari crew in the garage. This has worked out perfectly for Hamilton.
And you are in front.
Lewis Hamilton currently leads this Grand Prix, and you can hear it in the engineer's voice. He's like, hey, you're leading the Grand Prix. Still plenty of laps to take place. We're on lap 42 of 66.
Great job, guys.
And Andrew,
so a bit
you can almost hear the excitement in Lewis Hamilton's voice.
Exactly, and also the pit wall at Ferrari, they know exactly what's at stake here with the Mercedes behind them. The VSC's finished now 13 years after Ferrari last won the Spanish Grand Prix. The person who won that race for them has just turned it for them, ironically. He didn't do it deliberately, but Fernando Alonso won that race on a 4-stop strategy more than anybody else, and he stopped on the inside of turn 9. That's what led to the VSC. That's what's allowed Hamilton to come out in front. Can he hold this lead now to the end of the race on these fresher tyres?
Exactly that. He's got a bit of traffic in front of him from Sergio Perez, who of course will move out the way for Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari have won the most Grand Prix around here, as still the grandstand applauding Lewis Hamilton, and it's already been a lap since he took the lead of this race. And Ferrari have won the most round here. They've achieved the most podiums here too, but Ferrari have never won here in the hybrid era. But of course, as Andrew just touched on, their last win coming from Fernando Alonso in the V8 powered Ferrari back in 2013.
And Lewis absolutely putting the hammer down on this outlap as well, as he gained 9 tenths in the middle sector and was purple in the last sector as well. So really played perfectly into Ferrari's hands there. I mean, you couldn't have timed it better. It was a little bit of luck, but sometimes you have to get a little bit of luck when you're racing. It's motorsport after all.
Yeah, what's interesting about this is it looked like we were going to see at the end of the race on the plan that they were going to be battling for the lead anyway, Ferrari, but here's Russell's radio.
24 laps remaining. That's the race up ahead of you. 1.3 behind.
Yeah, so it's going to be difficult for the Mercedes drivers. They've got 6-lap older tyres, and the tyres degrade by at least 1/10 of a second a lap. So I don't really see how Russell's got much hope, and let's see how much pace that Mercedes has got.
Let's quickly pop to Queen's. Russell Fuller.
Where Emma Raducanu has had a second opportunity to serve for the set to take the Queen's final into a decider, but Donna Vekic has broken back again, saving 2 set points in the process. So Vekic leads by a set to love, and it's 5 games all.
Coverage continues on BBC One, as well as commentary of the Cricket World Cup on Sports Extra. Lewis Hamilton then has been noted for a yellow flag infringement, so unsure what that is exactly for, but of course, it's going to be under the virtual safety car, I expect, from Fernando Alonso. So we'll keep you updated with that on lap 44. As it stands, Hamilton, Russell, Antonelli, Norris, Verstappen, your top 5.
Yeah, if he gets a penalty in this stage of the race, that would be a nightmare. But they're in the privileged position. If they get a time penalty, he has that margin to be able to try and bridge that gap out. He's got the tyre advantage, and he's got 22 laps to really try to give it some and make that difference. Of course, we haven't seen a time penalty come through yet, but they're normally quite strict with infringements under yellow flag conditions.
I tell you what though, after Monaco and Gasly getting his third place back, if there is some kind of time penalty he has to serve in the pits, for example, there's no way they're going to do it. They're going to wait until after the race and argue it out, but let's see what happens.
Yes, exactly that. That's what I would personally do if I was down at Ferrari. But Hamilton, fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:20.122, and that is compared to Russell last lap round on a 1:20.8. Kimi Antonelli in third, 1.6 seconds back from his teammate, but 5.5 off the race lead. And then Lando Norris, let's not forget about him, He's 1.4 seconds behind in fourth, and Verstappen almost in a race of his own. He's out there on the medium tyre, but he's 19 seconds behind Lando Norris. He's under a little bit of pressure, though, potentially soon from Charles Leclerc in sixth.
That radio message, just going back to what George's engineer said, you've got 24 laps and that's your race ahead of you. That must have been heartbreaking to hear from him, because he knows that he's been done over a little bit with that virtual safety car, and it's really frustrating. He's done everything right in this Grand Prix, and it was literally kind of lady luck itself was not in his favour this Grand Prix so far.
Well, never mind this Grand Prix, it's all year he hasn't had lady luck, isn't it? And also, let's not forget, this is the second time Russell's been done over by a safety car, because he lost what was probably going to be second place behind Oscar Piastri in Japan and ended up being fourth with Antonelli winning, and that he got vaulted into the lead because of that safety car. But at the moment, Hamilton, Alice, is looking very comfortable out on front. As I said a few minutes ago, he's got a lot more pace than the Mercedes drivers because of those fresher tyres. We've got another yellow flag infringement coming up from race control with Colapinto. A little bit echoes of Monaco on this one, isn't there?
I didn't want to be the one to say it.
We'll keep you updated. 4.4 though is the gap at the moment between Russell and Hamilton. Further back, we've still got battles of Lindblad all over the back of Sainz for 12th. So there's that battle continuing there, and then it's fairly split. The closest battle actually is between, at the moment, Antonelli and Russell. 1.6 is the gap. Norris not too far behind, as it looks like Lindblad has completed that move, Abby, into turn one on Sainz.
Yeah, that was a really, really tidy kind of textbook move into turn one. Lindblad going around the outside. Around here it's quite cambered in turn one, so you can lean on the tyre quite a lot despite being wide, and he just got the upper hand on Carlos Sainz there.
20 laps to go here in Spain. Lewis Hamilton leads the Grand Prix, and we can still hear fans cheering in the grandstand as Lewis Hamilton, who stretches legs to 5 seconds, is the gap out front now. And comparison lap time, Lewis Hamilton 120.3, George Russell a 120.7. So still the gaps, still Hamilton with the upper hand. However, Abby, we have seen around here, if you can quite easily take a little bit too much life, a little bit too much time out of the tyre. And we're still, 19 laps of the race left to go. By the end of that, we could see Hamilton struggling for grip.
Yeah, and actually it's really good that you point that out, because George Russell has kind of stagnated at a 20.7, a 120.7 lap time, whereas Hamilton, he was really fast out the box, and he is slowly losing time and going in the realm of what we would expect. So potentially a bit of a game there from George, playing the long game, kind of maintaining his tyre a little bit better than what Hamilton is, where he's just all guns blazing. I mean, he looks like an absolute man on a mission, really trying to bridge this gap to George Russell, but it could hurt him in the last 5 laps of the race.
Antonelli is pretty much doing the exact same time as his teammate. Same with Lando Norris, actually, is doing the same pace. So it's only really Lewis Hamilton that's hovering around the 120.3 mark, saying that his teammate Charles Leclerc just set a personal best as well to join in there, but he's down in 6th place. But stand him in good stead to try and close the gap on Max Verstappen, which is still around about 2 seconds. So Antonelli has got his mirrors full of Lando Norris, but his eyes forward on George Russell. His engineer Bono was saying the battle is going to be between Lando Norris. But we've been saying here, but potentially it could be a battle for the win, but I think now for him is possibly a battle for second place.
I feel silly now. We just said about the degradation of Hamilton. He's just set a green sector 1, so not struggling and as much as maybe we thought, he maybe had a little bit more in the bag, a bit more tyre life in the bag. Of course, still a long way to go, but bridging that gap more and more. So, I mean, that was 2 attempts just in sector 1 alone. He's pulled out to George, and throughout the lap he's been about 7 to 8 tenths a lap quicker. So he's really, really extending his gap. 6.5 seconds now. Obviously, both on the hard tyre. Hamilton using that extra bit of life he has been given from that later pit stop, that free pit stop almost he got given.
Yeah, but Hamilton has got no further investigation. So a sigh of relief on the Ferrari pit wall, but maybe some frustrations from those on the Mercedes. So no further investigation for Lewis Hamilton, who's stretching his legs again at the top of the leaderboard. 6.6 seconds the gap on the road now.
Yeah, you say from the Ferrari pit wall it was a sigh of relief. I also sighed a little bit of relief. The last thing you want is for a Grand Prix to end and positions to change due to penalties and so on and so forth. So we can see them race and battle it out till the very end.
Exactly, and I think Lewis Hamilton having that all under control. Again, last time around it was actually 9/10 quicker than George Russell, and George Russell is quickly going to be coming under pressure from his teammate Kimi Antonelli. Still good lap times coming in from Lando Norris as well. So lap 49, it's Hamilton from Russell, Antonelli, your top three. Norris, Verstappen, your top five. Verstappen is one of three drivers out there on the medium tyre at the moment. Our top four are out on the hard. Then it's Leclerc, 1.7 seconds behind Verstappen, now in sixth from Piastri, Hadjar, Gasly, Colapinto.
And Lando race is having better pace over the whole stint than the cars ahead.
I just didn't pay, bro. Like, I had to go with them, or I drop back and just go. So I can't do both, I'm afraid.
So a bit of frustration there from Lando Norris, as he maybe was looking for some help from the McLaren pit walls, whether to close that gap on the two Mercedes or to drop back and maybe save some pace for later on in the race. But Hadjar rounds out your top 8 from Gasly, Colapinto and Lawson. Lindbergh complete the top 12. Sainz, Behrman's out there in 14th on the soft tyre, Bortoletto 15th, Ocon, Perez is the other medium runners, and Albon, who's 8 laps down. So we've missed Albon coming in and having an issue somewhere along the line, but he's out there at the moment on the soft tyre.
Someone that we've not mentioned in a bit is Charles Leclerc. At the start he was really carving his way through the field, but once he's got behind Max Verstappen, he's kind of stagnated a little bit, not able to make progress on Max Verstappen, who's on a bit of a different strategy to him. Verstappen on the medium tyre, the gap kind of ebbing and flowing between them, unlike his teammate managing to make much of that VSCs. He's kind of struggling out there a little bit after kind of lap 30 onwards, really.
So Lando, at the end of the race, I want to be within of Kimi ahead. He's got 3 strikes already.
So in terms of strikes, his engineer is Lando's engineer is telling him he's got strikes of track limits for Antonelli, so he needs to be within 5 seconds, because potentially if Antonelli does any more, that will be a 5-second penalty. Gap between Norris and Antonelli, 1.3.
Yeah, so how I read that really is he's telling Lando, look, you're 1.3 off of Kimi, you can afford to drop back a little bit and manage your tyre a bit more, as when you're within kind of that 2-second margin, you are getting the aero wash and it is damaging your tyre a little bit more. So he's kind of telling him you can afford to drop back maybe an extra 2.5 seconds, as long as you're within that 5-second gap in case Antonelli gets that penalty for track limits. And it seems fairly reasonable, to be honest. As he said, their target is to be long faster over the long stint, and it kind of is I think a smart call, because I think on pure pace alone they're not going to manage to get past the Mercedes.
So we'll keep an eye on that. We've got 15 laps to go in this race. Lewis Hamilton is still stretching his legs out front. It's 9 seconds is the gap to George Russell now.
15 laps to go. You are doing a good job, so you can go on.
Encouraging words from his engineer.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
I think Hamilton, we usually hear Hamilton come back and say, okay, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And of course, he certainly does. And the battle is now between the two Mercedes, under a second. 6/10 is the gap.
Yeah, of course, you mentioned he normally comes back on the radio, but Hamilton seems to be gelling much more with his new race engineer. Him and is making a good combo. You know, there's no kind of, I don't want to say back chat from Lewis, but last year you heard a bit of bickering on the radio, where there's a much more mutual respect for both of them. Of course, Lewis is leading the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix at the moment, so I feel he doesn't really want to be bickering too much. He's trying to keep cool, calm and collected, but it's really nice to see that shift from last year to this year.
It is, and maybe vintage Lewis Hamilton we could be seeing.
So gap at 0.9, 1.3 behind.
I have forward 4 place, Fred.
Copy that, Kimi.
Kimi saying, look, hello, let me through, I have so much more pace, I could be vulnerable here to Lando Norris. That gap's come down a little bit, 1.1 is the gap now, and it could be just George Russell. Would George Russell possibly play a bit of games here, Abby? Because of course he's fighting the championship against his teammate.
We'll need to pick up the pace here, George.
But I was just going to say, I wonder if he would be backing his teammate up into Lando Norris. Possibly. We've got a lot of races left to go. We're only on round 7 of 22 here in Barcelona. So his team, though, have possibly spotted that and saying, George, we need to pick up the pace, because he is actually dropping and forcing his teammate quite comfortably into the clutches of Lando Norris. 0.6 is the gap between the two Mercedes now as they come into turn 4. A result like this will, of course, see George Russell catch his teammate ever so slightly, but he will drift further away from Lewis Hamilton in the championship in second place.
Yeah, well, that last lap, George was a second off of Lewis, so he's not managing, as we hear from Norris.
And Lando, it's quite clear that Antonelli's been off track more than 3 times. We've reported it to the FIA. We expect he should get at least a 5-second penalty.
So, well, McLaren are busy keeping an eye on the track limits for Antonelli. We're going to pop back over to Russell Fuller at Queen's,
where a brilliant second set of the final continues. Donna Vekic had 3 championship points, all saved by Emma Raducanu. Raducanu had 2 set points, all saved by Donna Vekic. So we're into a tie-break, which Raducanu needs to win to keep this Queen's Club final alive.
And you can catch that Queen's final on BBC One now, but we're continuing our coverage here on 5 Live of the Grand Prix in Barcelona. Lap 54, Hamilton leading the way from Russell, Antonelli, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Hadjar rounds out the top 8 from Gasly, Colapinto, and this battle between the two Mercedes continues. Hamilton is dominating out front, with still setting pace, easy clear of George Russell. 10.4 is the gap at the moment. 0.9 is the gap between the two Mercedes as they come out of turn 4. Norris still hanging around to try and hopefully capitalise on potential battle between these two McLarens, but Ferrari are looking for their first win since Mexico 2024, so a couple of seasons ago. Hamilton's had huge success around this circuit. His last win was in Belgium in 2024, and if he wins here, it'll be his 7th win around this circuit and his 106th career victory. Hugely impressive, and of course it will be a popular victory, but he's still got 11 laps of the circuit left to go before he can be celebrating, and Ferrari can be celebrating once more. But that gap between the two Mercedes now has dropped. Kimi Antonelli dropping into the clutches of Lando Norris.
I want to go back to Kimi Antonelli's radio message. He had so much frustration in his voice. As you say, maybe George is backing him up into Lando Norris. I mean, George has been struggling for pace, whether that's purposeful or not. But even on the stint before, George was under massive amounts of pressure from Kimi Antonelli. There's so much pace behind Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes, he just can't use it, and you hear that, you hear the frustration in his radio message, and he's doing more track limits. You know, Norris's side of the garage are quite confident he's done enough to warrant a penalty for track limits, so maybe that's a bit of his kind of younger spirit coming out there, and his hunger and making a few more mistakes than he would like. His inexperience, maybe we should call it. He's leading, you know, the Formula 1 World Championship, and these little mistakes, these track limits, this frustration on the radio, it isn't necessary to an extent. He's in P3, you know, it's still good points, and he's still scoring great points for the long term, and that's maybe in his youth he's forgetting that a little bit, and is a bit narrow-minded in a sense.
And if Lewis Hamilton does continue this pace with 10 laps to go now here at the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix, he will close the gap from 66 down to 56 points between himself and Kimi Antonelli. So would you say it's too early, or it's just about the right time for potentially us to chuck in Lewis Hamilton challenging for the Drivers' Championship this year, Abby?
I shouldn't be biased, of course, but I'm a racing driver at heart, and I've grown up watching Lewis Hamilton in the Silver Arrow, in the Mercedes, and it was so beautiful to watch, and his mindset and how he carried himself and how he was, and it would be amazing to see him battling his old team for the title in the Scarlet Red Ferrari. That would be very, very cool to see, and it would be emotional for me even. I think Hamilton is a living legend at the moment, so I really, really would love to see that. I mean, who knows what will happen, but he's doing everything right at the moment, putting himself in the window to be there by the end of the season. Of course, Ferrari bringing 8 upgrades this weekend. They're going to continue to try and innovate and make changes throughout the season, as will their competitors, so we'll see if it will close up.
Will there be, Andrew Benson, a more popular win this season?
Well, one can't be biased, can one, Alice? But I think, the story of Hamilton going to Ferrari, it's easy to forget now. It's been going on for so long, and it was so difficult last year. It was a massive, massive story at the time. And he's been through the mill at that team. We all heard his comments last year talking about, maybe they need another driver. He's not fast anymore. He wasn't looking forward to this season. Well, he can bury all those now, can't he? Here he is. He's got a competitive car. They were, he was contending for victory anyway in this race, let's not forget. And he is, his fame and notoriety transcends the sport. He's one of very few people you can say that about in any sport. And Ferrari is the most famous team, so this is going to make a huge impact. There's no question about that.
And what about in Italy? Will it be more popular than Kimi Antonelli winning?
Well, the church bells will be ringing in Maranello tomorrow morning, that's for sure. And he's got some competition, obviously, because Antonelli has become a huge superstar in Italy this year, competing with Yannick Sinner, the tennis player, to be their sort of national sporting hero. Hamilton's not Italian, but Ferrari is effectively the Italian national team. They've had a difficult time as a team of the last couple of years. They haven't won since 2024, so I'm sure that the nation as a whole will be celebrating as a consequence.
Of course, it will. 9/10 is still the gap between Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. 13 is the gap between Russell and Hamilton, and Norris now, I think he's pretty much exhausted potentially all the pace in his hard tyre. He's dropped off the back of this battle for second place. 2.3 is the gap, and Max Verstappen is 16 seconds off the back of Lando Norris, and as you mentioned earlier on, Abby, Charles Leclerc's lost some pace in that Ferrari, so the gaps are there's no real close gaps out there at the moment. The closest we've got is for down in 15th place between Carlos Sainz and Bortoletto, and they're fighting as well with Esteban Ocon. But just to touch back on Lewis Hamilton, 386 Grand Prix starts, 105 wins, could get the 106th today, 103 poles, 205 podiums and 68 fastest laps, and he's been waiting a very long time to win a Grand Prix in Ferrari colours, and he's certainly heading the right direction here this afternoon in Barcelona. A bit of luck's come into play with the virtual safety car. He had a look at George Russell as well at the start, going round into turn 3, wasn't able to make it stick, but that virtual safety car from Fernando Alonso, which brought out the VSC, as we just said, has helped him with Hamilton boxing under virtual safety car, the Mercedes already having done so a few laps earlier.
Yeah, but going back to what Andrew said as we hear from Hamilton now.
BMIG suggestion.
I think where I am. Leave me to it.
Russell 22-1.
There you go, that was giving him some information, his engineer, on what everyone else is up to. But yeah, going back to what Andrew was saying, is that okay, Hamilton has gotten some look this race. He got the VSC, kind of a bit of a free stop, but he's still pulling out about 6/10 a lap, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on obviously mistakes and things throughout the lap. But he's pulled out a 14-second gap, which that essentially is what he made up from the VSC, so he would have been in contention for the lead, and they've been battling wheel to wheel at this point anyway in the race. It's just we kind of didn't get that part of the race due to it, but it's not a testament to luck, I don't think. I really think that they did this all on merit.
In the pits come Isaac Hadjar for Red Bull. So he's coming out from 8th position, a clean stop. On goes a set, and that looks like to me a used soft tyre. So maybe he's looking to try and pinch the fastest lap off Lewis Hamilton, who's still on pace wide, 1.1 seconds quicker than George Russell at the moment. So comfortable out front, still close between the two Mercedes. Antonelli maybe building up a bit of frustration, and looks as well also a little bit of a lean of the neck there, Abby, against the headrest as he goes round turn 3. It's hugely tough on the tyres here, but it's also hugely tough on that upper part of the body for these drivers, in particular the neck. It's a long right-hander is turn 3 into another long right-hander of turn 4 before it's a left-hander into 5. We've got 14 turns here at Barcelona, 4.6 kilometres, 9 turns to the right, 5 to the left.
Yeah, turn 3 is never ending as a racing driver. You're going around there for 3 or 4 seconds and you just want it to be over by the end of a long race stint. But not only that, you then have the last sector of turn 13 and 14, which is really high G, high speed, and that also is very physical on the neck. So you do feel it by the end. There's a lot of physical tracks on the calendar this year, and this being one of them. But Kimi Antonelli getting ever so close to the back of George Russell in the final sector, really pushing on forward now, I think, making the most of the hard tyre now going onto the main straight.
3/10 is the gap as they go across the line. George Russell's going to have to pull over to defend, or is he? He's going to squeeze his teammate. He's slightly on the grass into turn 1, side by side for the Mercedes, and that is move complete for Kimi Antonelli. That was a late defence part by George Russell. He's going to try and go around the outside of turn 3. Isn't going to be able to do it, or is he? He's going to try. No, not quite close enough. The two Mercedes go side by side into turn 4. No contact made this time round, 10 years later, where both Mercedes ended up in that gravel trap on the outside. But aggressive stuff from Kimi Antonelli, and I think it was actually, Abby, a small mistake through the exit of turn 12 for George Russell. Got a kick of oversteer as he applied the power, and that is him dropping down into 3rd place. And from a driver that started on pole, looked like he was in control, his afternoon, that's going to be the heart sinking for George Russell down into 3rd.
Yeah, that's going to leave a sour taste in George Russell's mouth. That he's going to be seething. You know, we thought this was his weekend to have. He was so fast. As we see Kimi Antonelli actually get a massive snap through turn 12. But yeah, and a bit of end plate damage actually as well from Kimi Antonelli. So maybe a bit of contact that we didn't quite see. But Kimi was looking so fast. He's been released now, and he can really kind of push on forwards. He's been held up by his teammate for so long now. On that overtake, he went a bit wide in turn 1, Kimi, so it's lucky that they didn't go wheel to wheel and make a little bit of contact, at least at that point of the corner. And we're seeing a lot more close-up shots of the damage Kimi has in his front right end plate. I don't think they'll have to box him for that, but it may pose an issue for a bit of locking, bit of overheating, and that tyre wear. It won't be helping him for sure, although there's only 4 laps to go managing that.
So Kimi, you've got 5 laps remaining.
Kimi Antonelli slowing, the championship leader.
Turn 5 exit, turn 10
is
exit.
Slowing. And that is devastation for Kimi Antonelli. He didn't mention it on the radio message there, but he's caught over in his head, in his hands for Kimi Antonelli. A little bit of damage on the front there, but listening in, potential gearbox there by the sounds of it, and that is it. Race over for Kimi Antonelli. That's going to, I expect, bring out a safety car. And Charles Leclerc is also slowing in the Ferrari. Late drama here in Barcelona with 3 racing laps left to go. We're possibly going to get 2 retirements, and it's a look in the mirrors from Leclerc, who's still cruising round.
Lost the power steering. I'm losing the power steering.
So losing power for Charles Leclerc, virtual safety car is out, and into the pit lane come pretty much most of the mechanics, most of the teams. Actually saying that McLaren go back in now. The gap between Hamilton and Russell is 22.4 seconds, but Kimi Antonelli, the championship leader, out of this race. He retired from the race here last year. As we're listening on board to Charles Leclerc, and that again, him going through the gravel, an issue for him too, and that could possibly be, Abby, worrying times on the pit wall with a few laps of this Grand Prix remaining. His teammate leading the race, so worrying times possibly for Ferrari.
Yeah, that didn't sound nice at all. It just kind of clunked out in the middle of turn 2 and forced Charles to go over the gravel, but that is another issue for the Mercedes power unit. Of course, Kimi, the only one going into this weekend that hadn't had any issues so far, at least large enough to take them out of Grand Prix, like Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. They've had issues. George Russell has had issues. Kimi Antonelli now falling victim.
We have a winner at Queen's,
where Donna Vekic has won the title, beating Emma Raducanu 6-love, 7-6. Raducanu had 2 set points, was a double break-up in the second set, saved 5 championship points, but Vekic of Croatia is the champion at Queen's.
Thank you very much, Russell. So virtual safety car still out here. Lewis Hamilton still getting applauded as he goes through into turn 1, and it looks like the marshals possibly struggling to remove Kimi Antonelli's car. They're able to do so now, and Kimi Antonelli waving to the crowd, but clearly, as you expect, frustrated. That hands are maybe a little bit of luck possibly back to George Russell. Of course, he had a retirement in Canada that Mercedes were still trying to get their head around.
Yeah, and this race now, there's only 2 laps remaining, so this could potentially end under the virtual safety car. It will be a 1-lap dash. Okay, it's virtual safety car, so that means the cars aren't all bunched up. The gaps have remained the same, so Russell now actually has a 25-second gap to Lewis Hamilton, which is not great at all, really, for George. He's bagging on a full safety car to bring it close together, but then I don't think we would get the racing lap, as it's closing so close to an end now of this race.
It is. Kimi Antonelli's going to hop on the back of a moped and go back to the paddock, and that is a blow for his challenge for the title, and it does look like they're going to possibly have to get the tractor here out, maybe, because the marshals are trying to push his car between the opening in the barriers, but not able to do so. They're struggling to manoeuvre the car for him, but it's all under control for Lewis Hamilton out in front. Novak Djokovic, talking about tennis today with Emma Raducanu at Queen's. He's going to be waving the checkered flag, the 24-time Grand Slam winner. And you can hear the crowd, and he's looking into the crowd, and it will likely erupt for Lewis Hamilton, and the gap between Kimi Antonelli and Lewis Hamilton will go down to 41 points as the virtual safety car is about to end.
Now that is significant. 41 points between Kimi Antonelli and Lewis Hamilton. If it ends as it is now, that would be, incredible for Ferrari, incredible for Lewis. That puts them right back in the mix going into this European leg. They can really pile on the pressure. We almost didn't see that happening at all. Heartbreak for Kimi Antonelli, especially after he'd just been released from George Russell. He just muscled his way past and had clear air to then kind of conk out and have an issue. For him is absolute heartbreak.
Ferrari have never won here in the hybrid era. Last win around this circuit was in 2013 with Fernando Alonso. Last win in Formula One for Ferrari was Carlos Sainz in Mexico in 2024, but they've got a great record around this circuit. The most Grand Prix wins here with 8. That's about to go to 9, and they've achieved the most podiums here too with 26. So we're on to the final lap here in Spain, and you can hear the crowd, and most of them are on their feet. There is a sea of red out here. Maybe the crowd knew something that we didn't. The banks are absolutely packed, and Lewis Hamilton has it all under control. Ferrari flags are waving. It's been a long time for Lewis Hamilton to win a Grand Prix. You've got to look back. Belgium 2024, and it's probably going to be an emotional one for the Ferrari driver, who had a tough time last year in Ferrari colours, was questioning his time in the sport. So as we near the end of this final tour around the Circuit de Catalunya here for Formula 1 in 2026. It is going to be Lewis Hamilton who will finally take the trip back to the top step of a podium. 686 days since his victory in Spa in 2024. He had times of questioning his time in the sport. Time, he said, were a battle of its mind and no longer with the cars around him. But he was living proof of champions never give up through every setback, every criticism. The sun is shining down in Barcelona and the wait is finally over for Lewis Hamilton, who is victorious once more and in Ferrari colours. Lewis Hamilton wins the Barcelona Grand Prix, an emotional one for him as he puts his head in his hands, waves, he's tapping the top of his halo. George Russell comes across the line in second place and Lando Norris will round out the podium as he dashes to the pit wall. His McLaren mechanics over the pit wall and there's big celebrations and a great day for British sport as well. It's a all-podium lockout between Hamilton, Russell and Norris. We had an all-British front row and they're almost looking shocked a little bit on that Ferrari pit wall. Abby, what they've just achieved. Lewis Hamilton is a winner in Formula 1 once again in Ferrari colours.
Yeah, and it's actually been since 1968 we had a full British lockout of the US Grand Prix. We saw that, so incredible history made in that sense, but also from Lewis Hamilton.
Well done, Lewis, well done. Finally you deserved the first year that we will always remember. Thank you.
Congratulations with Jim. Good job.
Ciao ragazzi, grazie a tutti, Maranello. Thank you so much. You've helped me achieve this dream, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you for everyone pushing so hard back at home. I'm so proud of you. And to my family, I love you. And to the fans, thank you for continuing to remind me who I am. Couldn't have done this without you. Grazie.
I think that's important, Abby, reminding him of who he is. A champion, of course, a winner for Ferrari, a winner once more. His 106th career win. He got the fastest lap of the race as well. And you almost heard the emotion from his engineer as Lando Norris comes into the pits behind him. The crowd, I don't think there's a single person that's sat down here in Barcelona. The crowd are on their feet as Lewis Hamilton slackens the belts coming into pit lane.
Let's go! For the Ferrari! Guys, thank you for those great pit stops as well. Sorry I keep talking, I'm so proud of you. Thank you.
Yeah, they nailed it this afternoon as he pulls up to the number one board once again. It's been a long time coming, you could say, this season for Lewis Hamilton, who's thriving in 2026 in this new era of Formula 1. He's going to stand aloft of his scarlet Ferrari and he raises his fists and he's going to run over to a sea of Ferrari mechanics, a sea of Ferrari flags, Italian flag there as well. A chance of Lewis Hamilton echo. He's a winner once again. Lots of Vamos being echoed around too, and it will be hugely popular. And we're just looking, Kimi Antonelli is down there as well in Parc Fermé. Force didn't finish the race and is straight over to Lewis Hamilton, congratulating him, giving a huge hug. Of course, a reminder that Lewis Hamilton, with this win and with the DNF from Kimi Antonelli, 41 points. It is at the top of the drivers' standings between these two drivers. Lewis Hamilton popping onto the scales. And to quickly run you through the finishing order as well, as Lewis Hamilton, I think a bit of emotion. He can't even step on the scales right now, crouches down, starts to release his hands device. I think tears possibly for Hamilton. He can't quite believe it as Lando Norris comes up to him now.
Interrupted the moment a little bit.
He has it in some ways. And yeah, emotions, of course, running so high for Lewis Hamilton. But it's Lewis Hamilton who wins here in Spain. George Russell and Lando Norris completing a British podium, from Max Verstappen in 4th, Piastri 5th, Hadjar, Gasly, Colapinto, double points finish for Alpine, and a double points finish as well for Racing Bulls, as Liam Lawson was 9th, Arvid Lindblad 10th, Bortoletto 11th, Sainz, Ocon, Perez complete the top 14, and then it was retirement for Charles Leclerc, Antonelli, Behrman. Albon was actually 11 laps down. He retired and then unretired himself to go back out. And Fernando Alonso, Hulkenberg, Bottas and Stroll, your remainder retirement. Says it's a big congratulations from Max Verstappen as well down there to Lewis Hamilton.
I think this is a win that everyone across the grid and in the grandstands will be loving. There won't be one person, I think, that will be unhappy about this result. It's been a long time coming, and as they always say, everyone is a Ferrari fan. You know, everyone loves to see the Scarlet Red Ferrari doing a good job, being on the top of the podium and winning races. It's incredible to see, and what a mature race from Lewis. I mean, of course, he used every bit of experience and knowledge he's got to secure that. The team, as he said on the radio, doing an amazing job, great pit stops, of course doing a 3-stop strategy, different to his competitors. I mean, yeah, it was a textbook race from him, and I could be happier for him, to be honest.
A sea of photographers, and you cannot get an extra person down there behind the fencing in Parc Fermé. It is absolutely rammed. Fred Vasseur is there too, team principal of Ferrari, who gives Lewis Hamilton a big slap on the back, a big hug, and of course someone that's played an important role in his career as well when he was working at ART, a team that Lewis Hamilton raced for and achieved titles and wins, and Angela, his physio as well, who's looking extremely emotional. And as Lewis walks away, you could just see he kind of is in a little bit of shock as well, but he had it all under control from that VSC. Ocon's down there congratulating. I think pretty much every driver on the grid, Abby, has been there to congratulate Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, he looks like a different person from what we saw last year, and this is the Hamilton we know and love, and I'm really excited to see what he continues to do in that Ferrari for the rest of the season, to be honest. I hope this isn't, I hope this is just the start of Ferrari finding their feet again.
And the post-race interviews are going to be hosted by Nico Rosberg.
Lewis, you did it. You're a Ferrari race winner. After all that difficult start last year, how does this one feel for you?
First, I have to start and say a huge grazie to everyone here, my team here, Ferrari, everyone back at the factory, Fred for believing in me and bringing me to this team. I started out a dream last year, which seemed almost impossible during my time last year, but we never gave up hope, and the team just continued to lift me up. We made so many changes and we made so many improvements, and on top of that, I've got the greatest fan base a sportsman could ever ask for, and so thank you to everybody.
We're hearing huge applause for you, Lewis. That's 106 wins. How does this one rank in those 106? Is it one of your best feeling-wise?
They're all special in their own way, but this one's something else. This is, I watched Ferrari have all that success when I was younger, watching it on TV, and as I've been racing here, I'd always watch the screens and wonder what it'd be like to win in that car, and it's come, and everyone works so hard for it. Everyone truly deserves it. So I'm forever grateful to them, and this is just the first, I hope, of many. But great pit stops today, great strategy. The car felt fantastic, and Forza Ferrari.
George, question to you. So, of course, Lewis is your ex-teammate. Do you have some words seeing Lewis win in the Ferrari for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, huge congrats to this guy, because I know how hard he works, and obviously we spent a lot of years together in Mercedes. So, really pleased to see him back to the Lewis I remember when I was growing up watching Formula One. But yeah, tough day. It's good to be back on the podium and have a bit of a clean race from my side. But Ferrari mighty impressive today, and we need to keep on pushing.
You had a really strong weekend, yeah, all weekend, looking confident and everything. Is it you finding back to your best here?
Yeah, I mean, Friday and Saturday was a really strong and solid day for me. Today was a little bit more challenging. Everything started off quite well. I felt good in the first stint, and then the last two stints it was a bit more difficult. But as I said, it's good to be back here.
Are you worried a little bit now by the challenge these guys are posing? Pace, reliability issues we're seeing with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was a real surprise for us in the team, and then the pace today was insane from Lewis. So, they're coming, I think.
Lando, P3 for you. Great race pace. I mean, yesterday qualifying was a bit difficult, but today was awesome out there, right?
Yeah, I guess first of all, I want to congratulate Lewis. Nice to see him back on top, so I'm very happy for you, mate. It was a tough race. I did my best to keep up with these guys, but too quick. So we stayed there. We gave ourselves a chance if anything happened, and we obviously got a bit lucky with Antonelli going out, but otherwise, very happy for the team, very happy to be back on the podium. So a good day for us.
There's only a little bit missing now to really challenge for the wins. What do you think needs to still come?
Didn't hear a word you said.
What's missing still to win? You're coming closer to them. You're close in the race today. What do you still need to deliver to get that win soon?
Just a little bit of everything at the minute. We're doing a good job as a team. I think we're making good progress, but these guys are just doing a better job. So we have to give credits to them and admit that to ourselves, that we got to keep working hard. We got to keep putting in the effort. But the whole team are doing it. So I'm very happy with them, but we just got to keep our heads down and keep working, and we'll be there soon. It's
a special day for Great Britain, by the way, because the last all-British podium was 1968, long time ago. So that's pretty incredible. So congrats to that.
Well done, boys.
Lewis, back to you. Where's all this confidence now coming from? I mean, you're flying out there today.
I think I just working my way back to my center, and I got great prep. I've trained so hard to be here today. There's so much work that I'm doing in the background, but also again, just as I said, the team are giving me that confidence with the changes that we've made, believing in and trusting in the decisions and the things that I've asked for, and we're slowly starting to see this just all come together, and and I'm just happy in my life, so I'm in a good place. I love doing what I do. There's no greater feeling than racing the Formula 1 car.
Does that mean it's game on for the championship? No points for Kimi today. You made up 25. Is that what you're saying?
I definitely will take it. It's a long way to go, and they still have great pace, as you can see. But we're going to keep working. We're going to keep trying to close that gap. It's not over, that's for sure.
Awesome. So we're in for a good one this year. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you in Austria.
Wow. And you can hear the emotion from all the drivers towards Lewis Hamilton, particularly Lewis Hamilton. The emotion in his voice is running high, and he trails now Kimi Antonelli by 41 points in the driver's standings in P2. George Russell 50 points behind Antonelli on 106 points. But Andrew, that's an emotional one for Lewis Hamilton, and one that, of course, is going to go down in history. His first win in Ferrari colours.
His first win in Ferrari colours, the first all-British podium since the 1968 US Grand Prix, which was Jackie Stewart, Graham Hill and John Surtees. I guess we've been waiting for that one for a while with Russell, Hamilton and Norris at the front of Formula One. But yes, Hamilton and Ferrari, it's always been a hugely magical, romantic story. The most famous driver in the world with the most famous team in the world. It didn't start well last year, to say the least. Hamilton went through the mill emotionally and competitively, but this year he's been really back to form, and Ferrari, they've made a change to their car, upgrades this weekend, and this bodes really well for them for the rest of the season. Of course, a long way to go, many more upgrades to come, but who knows what's possible now for Hamilton and Ferrari, and what a fairy tale it would be if he really was competing for the championship with Russell and Antonelli for the rest of the year.
He said he's been training hard, he's been hungry, and we've seen pictures on his social media of him constantly out running, cycling. So Hamilton working very hard as the drivers in the cool down room now got their towels, so no towels have gone missing at this Grand Prix at least. Having sips of water, and they're just watching through the start replays. But I think they're all exhausted. Still really hot here. Air temperature 30 degrees, track still at 48. So not much talking between the drivers. But Lewis Hamilton still got a bit of energy. He's wandering around the cool-down room. And he's catching the replay of making a move of him round the outside of Oscar Piastri. And they're having a joke and a laugh about it. Lando Norris as well has leapfrogged his teammate in the standings, goes up to 5th place. And he's actually only 2 points behind Charles Leclerc in 4th.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that.
What is shot point?
I saw on the TV was was he still in the penalty? I saw he was in the pit lane for a long time during.
No penalty, George, for Max Verstappen, as they're catching replays now of Lewis Hamilton taking the checkered flag. And down in pit lane, Abby, there's a lot of Italian flags, a lot of Ferrari flags, and a sea of Ferrari fans in the grandstands as well. And also plenty of fans with banners dedicating their thoughts to Lewis Hamilton in celebration of his victory.
Yeah, as I said, I don't think anyone's angry about this win here for Lewis Hamilton. The fans are absolutely loving it in Barcelona, and it's really an incredible event to have witnessed, history made with Lewis and Ferrari. It is a beautiful kind of story unfolding with them. Of course, the start of their kind of relationship together, Lewis and Ferrari, wasn't the best, wasn't the most positive. So to see it kind of turn on its head, see the success come for them, and of course the all British podium lockout as well. McLaren not as fast as we maybe expected today, but kind of handed a bit of luck on their side with Antonelli having his issue promoted Lando Norris to that podium position.
And it's still, everyone is staying for this podium celebration, I think, Abby, because the banks are still packed, the grandstand is
square inch in sight.
Yeah, it's still full as the podium ceremony gets underway. It will be Lando Norris that will appear first, and he will step foot on the 3rd place spot on the podium. Away to the crowd, a thumbs up to him and his team down below. And from 2 retirements in the last 2 races, he's back on the podium. Last was on the podium in 2nd place in the Miami Grand Prix. George Russell steps foot onto the podium. He's had a challenging time the last couple of Grand Prix, but he'll be pleased to get back on the podium once again. And Lewis Hamilton, crowd cheering, 686 days since he stepped foot on the top of a Formula 1 Grand Prix podium. That's been a long wait for the British driver, but he's back up there once again. Italian national anthem. And Lewis Hamilton picks up the towel, wipes his eyes. He's full of emotion, puts back on his hat, and he's going to receive the quite beautiful gold trophy. He throws it up in the air, just about catches it, and he rushes to the edge of the podium and shows it to his Ferrari team, and a pump of the fist as well. He will receive the winner's medal, and you can constantly hear over the national anthems chants of Lewis, Lewis, Lewis. And I don't think Lewis Hamilton can have a bigger smile on his face right now. And as we already mentioned, a great day for British sport too. A British lockout podium as the Constructors' Trophy handed out to... It's going to be a night of celebrations, and we go back on track in a couple of weeks' time at Red Bull Ring. Busy schedule, as always, this period of time in Formula 1. George Russell's going to pick up the second place trophy. He looks happy, but I would say a bit disappointed, missing out on victory, of course, starting in pole position. But I think inside, he'll probably be breathing a sigh of relief in some ways. Kimi Antonelli passing him in the dying stages of this race, but then Kimi having that retirement, still unsure, Mercedes, of what the problem is. They just simply said the car switched off, so they'll have to look back at that. But champagne is flying on the podium. Lando Norris receives his third place trophy. Huge celebrations as Hamilton soaks the camera, and he soaks George Russell, Lando Norris, the team down below as well. This champagne I'll be pulling is going to taste super sweet for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since he's managed to spray the champagne of the P1 bottle, let's say. I mean, George now pouring champagne over his head. Obviously, previously teammates in the past, but yeah, beautiful scenes in Barcelona on the podium.
And Andrew, it was looking a little bit disappointed from George Russell, but as I said, he'll probably be slightly pleased at Antonelli's retirement.
In a way, it's worked out quite well for him, hasn't it? I think in terms of the big picture, you know, he was beaten by Antonelli on effectively having been passed by him with 4 or 5 laps to go. So that won't have felt good. But Antonelli's retirement's given him a big present in terms of the championship. That was an electrical shutdown, Mercedes say, and as Abby was saying earlier, yet another retirement for a Mercedes engine car. They've definitely got some reliability problems as well as stunning pace. Of course, you know, so I think from Russell's point of view, had the VSC not happened when Alonso broke down, Antonelli would have won the race probably from Russell and Hamilton, most likely. I think Hamilton would have struggled to get past both Mercedes drivers probably in the closing laps. Maybe he would have got one of them, in which case it would have been Russell, ironically. So I think from Russell's point of view, he will rue that, I would imagine, but we'll hear from him in a little bit later, I'm sure. But at the same time, when he looks at the mathematics of the championship, it's actually done him a favour overall this day, even if it hasn't gone quite the way he would have wanted it.
Events coming thick and fast with a 2-week gap. It's then the Austrian Grand Prix, and then it is the British Grand Prix. And wouldn't all 3 of those drivers that we saw on the podium like a win there? But Lewis Hamilton wins here in Barcelona. Victory number 6 in Formula 1. But perhaps one of the sweetest of them all, his very first for Ferrari. A sensational drive, historic triumph, and scenes of pure celebration as Hamilton and Ferrari finally conquer together. Over to you, chappers.
Thank you very much. We'll get more reaction throughout the course of the afternoon from Barcelona, and there'll be a checkered flag pod later on. It's exactly 4 o'clock.